evening, race fans, and welcome here to the second race of the second season of the BackFire Sim Racing Cup Series as we get ready to go racing at the hot, slickery, and slip Atlanta Motor Speedway. Getting ready here today for the BackFire 250 presented by Threat Level Midnight Motorsports. This 1.5-mile historic speedway getting ready to play its part just off the heels of last week's Daytona event. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Scott Rankin, and obviously here, Scott, you talked about last week how Daytona's a wild card race. Drivers' fates are pretty much in the hands of the moves they make in the track itself. Here today, the drivers control their own destiny.
100%, and Atlanta's the reason that I love Atlanta is it's very much a driver's track. Like you can overtake. Okay, we'll get into that a little bit down the line. But the way that you drive the car is so important. You have to make sure that your tire saving. Guys are going to sit around at the back of the pack and just really sit on their tires and lean very softly in. Are going to drop 5 to 10 spots in the opening 10 laps of a stint. After that, you'll see them slowly creep forward, but it's so difficult to overtake. To build that run, you've got to run that high line, but that's where the best line of the racing circuit is. If you can get down to that low line, you've got a good car, and you feel good on the low line, you're compromising yourself on exit, which means the car on the outside, they just drive back around you. It's a phenomenal battle between machine and man, because you've got to understand what's the right time to push, when are your pit windows, what are your target lap times. There's a lot of practice that goes into being good at Atlanta, and ultimately, the guy that leads us off from the get-go, so long as he's still in the lead, 5 laps in, is generally going to be the guy that controls the pace of the race and can control the entire field, barring any mishaps on pit road.
JKR Motorsports, so far a perfect 2 for 2 with their drivers on pole positions. This week it's Jeremy Richmond alongside of Tom Bourne will be leading us to the green flag. We'll have to see if maybe, just maybe, they're going to be able to go 2 for 2 in winning the first 2 races on the season, as well as Brock Silvati was our winner last week in the Daytona race.
Necessarily, it's really the thing that we discussed at length last week was don't take a form guide out of this. You know, it's incredibly difficult to sit down and say, hey, the guy that wins at Daytona is going to control the field and they're going to be the best car today. But look, I think we're going to go get a really good read on the field today.
130 laps here tonight at Atlanta Motor Speedway as we are under the green flag. Jeremy Richmond going to lead them into turn 1. Keep an eye on these drivers, especially on corner exit. That's where I saw a lot of back ends wanting to step out, especially here off of 2. And with those cold tires and this slick racetrack, over 100 degrees, triple digits, we're 3 wide into 3 already.
Yeah, like I said, guys want to control the pace early. Guys that really want to lean on things and control the field. Tom Bourne, you see, has stepped out to an early lead. The reason that he wants to do that is if you're on fresh rubber and you're out in clear air out front, you're not suffering that aero wake. Your car's aero is working as it should. It means you can look after those tires that much better. The benefit offered to the cars behind is that draft, but ultimately, you really want the aero to be working to its optimal efficiency at a track like Atlanta.
Bourne, of course, last week was the first retiree out of the Daytona race, so certainly looking to get his season started now here at Atlanta as he leads his teammate Christopher Woodward to the start-finish line. The battle side by side is just outside the top 5. Jeremy Richmond started on the pole, dropped all the way back to the 6th position, trying to get back up towards the front. He's got Patrick McQuaid to his outside, at least for the time being early on. Looks like that outside line is a little bit more preferred.
Yeah, it will be. It's you hold a lot more momentum. Now, the outside line, you're going to burn up a little bit more fuel, but you're a little bit kinder to the tires. The banking up there really allows the car to rotate and turn. The car's going to get tight through the middle of the run, and you know it's not going to be as easy as you potentially think it is. And ultimately, you've got to be really careful with cars trying to dive it to your inside, but they're going to slide up the track a long way, and you're just going to drive around them. So.
TJ Roberts now getting by the 4th position around last week's pole sitter, Alexander Kerfan. Kerfan with a great run in his BackFire Sim Racing Cup Series debut, bringing it home inside of the... Actually, no, correction. He was one of the drivers that actually had an issue with a speeding penalty. He still finished 15th, though, so still a decent points day, looking to build off that here at Atlanta. We noticed some smoke there on the back straightaway. No caution coming out for it. I believe the 2 of Gene Cato may have looped it around there on the first lap. Currently on pit road, just now leaving pit road 2 laps down, but we still remain under the green flag nonetheless.
Yeah, so what happened now is Gene got a little bit loose. Car just didn't really want to settle on that midline. drifted up, clouded the wall, come down. Most cars avoided him. Unfortunately, Ron Gartner also, he just had nowhere to go, really. And Gene just kind of bounced off the wall, come down across the track, nowhere really for Gartner to go. So Gartner's going to be quite compromised in terms of speed and things as well. He'll be at risk of going a lap down in the near future too.
Yeah, not even 10 laps into this race, and Gene Cato already using the one available faster pair as teammates battling it out for the top position. Chris Woodard tried the top, now switches to the bottom, clears for the top spot before they even get to turn 4. So the 24 will be out in front for this first time here today at Atlanta. And Trey Whitehead in that 33 starting to reel in the top 2, so we could have a 3, maybe 4 car fight for the race lead as Kurfan also there in the same vicinity.
So a lot of these JKR Motorsport guys shuffling themselves to the fore early on, they're going to make sure their primary goal early on in this race is going to be to communicate. Make sure that if one of them wants a spot, that they just communicate, they let it happen. The reason why Christopher Woodard is pushing so hard to get control of this race early on is he knows how important that clear air was that we were talking about before. The other thing to consider is you've got a whole pack of JKR Motorsports guys. One of those guys will be mega saving on their tires, right? You always want a couple guys to push the pace up, push the pace up, push the pace up, because you want guys up ahead to have to drive their cars aggressively. One guy sits back, he's the one that benefits. Woodard wants to push it out in front, lead this for a little while because he wants to control the pace of the race and run it away from the JKR guys.
Things got really close for 7th place there. The 74 of Wesley Jeanette almost pushed up into the left rear quarter panel of DJ Daniel. Keep your eye on the 96 here today. Last season, he was a 3-time winner. 2 of those 3 wins came at 1.5 tracks. Matter of fact, one of them was at a D-shaped 1.5 in Charlotte Motor Speedway. So right now, holding down the 7th position. Keep an eye on that 96. I think you'll see him up at the front near the closing stages of this race. Another driver that has a lot of speed during practice, mired back currently in the 9th position. That's the 25 of Alonso Chicano. Right now trying to make his way around the 83 of Brock Whitehead as Tom Bourne got back to the top position. Now Woodard going to look on the top side again, and as these guys continue to battle, look at some of the other guys starting to make their way back up to the front. The 98 of Jeremy Richmond, the pole sitter's back up there. Patrick McQuaid in the 77, the muffler man, also trying to break into the top 5.
Yeah, just keep your eyes on a few guys right now. Remember, you're looking at long run pace here. The long runs are going to be super, super important. We haven't seen a caution yet. Potentially could have been a caution for that lap 1, lap 2 incident with Cato, but that's fine. Everything sort of plays itself out. Lap cars are going to be coming back their way now, so they've got to be a little bit careful in the way that they play through things. So right now, again, focus on just taking a read on these guys. I'm just keeping an eye on McQuaid. McQuaid's actually making a lot of time up in turn 1 and 2, and losing a little bit in 3 and 4. So he's not 100% happy with the way that his car's driving, but he's also driving it really nice and clean. It looks smooth. It looks good. So I've got my eyes on him towards the tail end of the race. This is being a real driver to watch.
A couple of drivers that were in the championship battle last season not faring so well, at least early on in this one. On the inside line there is the 9 of Christopher Lawrence, Daytona winner from last season. He's trying to get around Joshua Bilter for the 16th position. Another driver that dropped 16 spots since the drop of the green flag is the 49 rather of Kyle Gartner. He had a good run going last week at Daytona, but definitely not out of the gate the way he wanted to here in this one. I almost wonder if maybe he might have also had an issue here in the first couple laps of this race, and that's why he dropped back 16 spots. He lost from his starting spot of 12th.
I mean, yes and no. I remember what I was talking about, the guys wanting... You don't want to lose time. I mean, he could have quite easily to sort of spin the tires, lose a lot of momentum early, and especially early on, you're going to lose a lot of spots as everyone's sort of trying to build their way up, find their groove and those sorts of things. So, look, there's options here for him, and ultimately he's just going to keep the head down, keep looking after his stuff, and target that back end of the race. It's a very, very long motor race here at Atlanta, and it takes a huge toll on drivers. It's not easy. And for any stretch of the imagination.
Top 6, make that actually 7, have all now kind of broken away in a pack of their own. You got a couple of stragglers back there, Alonso Chicano as well as Aaron Brown in the 95. Brown coming off a runner-up finish last week to his teammate Brock Silvati, and now looking for back-to-back top 10 finishes in his first 2 BackFire sim racing starts. About our former winner from last week, Brock Silvati, currently looking ahead at a 3-wide situation. That's Ryan Sizemore in the middle. I think that was Jeanette on the top side, and on the inside line, I think that was the 13 of Chris Papa, Right now, Silvati currently riding in the 15th position, but in a bit of a hornet's nest.
I mean, Atlanta's a great track in terms of multi-groove racing. Look at it, you know, there's 3 distinct grooves. They've all got benefits. They've all got their weaknesses as well. Generally, the drivers transition towards that top side because they maintain their momentum. You're losing a little bit of time on corner entry, but the amount that you actually have to slow down to get the car down there generally compromises the run. Something that these guys need to be aware of, though, running in a 3-wide scenario at this pace, at this point in the race, guys are going to be burning their tires up to try and get through. So Silvati's just used his head here. He's picked up a couple places already out of this battle pack just by sitting back, just watching. Let these guys burn up their tires. Ultimately, you don't want them to be 3-wide because that compromises everyone's pace in the overall pack, and that means that you're dropping off the tail end of these leaders. Oh, the 83!
Great save there by Brock Whitehead, who was running at the time in the 12th position. Hangs on to it, drops back to 15th place. Going back to your point there about Silvati just riding, bear in mind with him having that win in the bank last week at Daytona, he's locked into the playoffs. He'll be battling for the championship. So, you know, at a track where tire conservation is key and preserving your race car, I mean, that just makes the job so much easier for him.
Yeah, especially difficult. You know, I thought it was under the impression that BackFire was a point your way in no matter what scenario. So have they changed the playoff scenario for this season?
I believe it's a win and you're in. I think it's the playoffs that's the unusual thing where they
that makes more sense. There you go. That does actually make more sense. Because the last time that I joined commentating for BackFire last season was actually during the playoffs. So that makes 10 times more sense. Alright, yeah, look, I mean, if he has locked himself in, what I tend to like to say about drivers in these sorts of situations is these are the guys that can have that off race, but more importantly, they can try and point the... Oh, Silvati's actually just called the fans. We're going to have a caution here for sure.
That's Jeanette in the 73, Wesley Jeanette. Oh, and gets a big shot from, I think that's Chris Hupka in the 5 over in turn 4, and you're right, first caution of the day on lap 19, and quite a number of drivers with some big hits over in the final corner.
Yeah, so what happened effectively is just Silvati's either tried to get back to the throttle a little bit too soon, and it's taken weight off the front of the car, or he's just driven it in way too deep. He's trying to pull the car out. I actually think he's probably just gone a little bit too deep in, and just hasn't given himself enough room to pull the car up, basically.
Smoking 74 of Wesley Jeanette making his way back to pit road. Saw the front end damage there on the 5 of Chris Hupka. We'll go back to the final corner here. Take a look at a replay. Obviously a couple of drivers, 74 for sure. The 5, I'm pretty certain they're going to probably have to use their faster pair as well. So that's about 2 or 3 drivers, only 20 laps in, that are already a faster pair in the hole. Certainly not what they wanted to have happen, especially with how treacherous we've already seen Atlanta Motor Speedway has been in the early stages.
So a couple things to note here. We only have 6 tire sets, which includes the set that these drivers start on, so there'll only be 5 sets waiting for them back in the lane. 130 laps, what that's going to be working out to, it's just over a tire set for every 20 laps of the race. We're at the 19 lap, 20 lap margin right about now. So there's an option for these drivers to come down pit lane and grab a set of tires. If I'm a betting man, 2 seconds off the pace in terms of tire fall off at this stage of the race, I'd be saying most of the field will be coming. And there is a small option for somebody who wants to bank up a set of tires for later on in the race. The issue is you're going to lose so much right now.
Ryan Sizemore got clipped in this incident, and riding on board here with Cam Caldwell, you can see he had to kind of use the outside wall to be able to get around the outside of the spinning 74 of Wesley Jeanette. So about 4 or 5 drivers involved here in the first caution of the day. You called it. Everybody on to pit road. Tom Bourne's going to lead them off of pit lane. He'll be the race leader when we go back green. Jeremy Richmond, Chris Woodard, Trey Whitehead, and Patrick McQuaid were the top 5 following him off of pit lane. So first pit stop of the day for these drivers. And yep, everybody, 4 fresh Goodyears underneath them here for this upcoming restart.
I mean, again, like I said, I think it's fine. If I'm one of those drivers that's sitting riding around at the back of the pack and just chilling out, and I've looked after my tires and the fall off isn't quite there, I'm probably hanging on to a set right about now just to try something different. I just want to create an advantage early in this race. ultimately, I expect there to be another caution at some point in the very near future. Probably about that another 20 lap range. If I can push those tires an extra 20 laps right about now, I've got an advantage over everybody else in terms of caution and playing myself into the picture later on.
So Wesley Jeanette in that 74 is not the race leader. Jeanette actually came down pit lane when the caution came out, took the faster pair, came out behind the pace car. Now when all the race leaders came down pit lane, they came out behind the 74. Not certain, though, with being involved in the incident and taking service there under that caution period. I don't think the 74 would be eligible for a wave around here, so I'm expecting that when the lights go out top the pace car, 74 will probably fall towards the back of the pack and be trapped one lap down, along with Ron Gartner and Gene Cato. I don't know if we had a lucky dog under this caution or not. I'm going to have to double check on that as well. Actually,
it would have been Gene Cato.
Gene Cato, you're right. Yep. Actually, he's already gone around and gotten one of the laps back as the 2 machine.
There goes Wesley Jeanette, so he does get his lap back. Because I was actually a little bit curious about that. What would be happening for Wesley there, like in that sort of scenario? Because it's the first time I've actually ever seen it, and it's come up for me. So does get his lap back, even though he served his service initially. Wave rounds, of course, don't have anything to do with being in the incident. You can be in the incident, you can cause the incident, you can stop out on track, you still get your wave round back. Obviously, that's a huge exploit. Very much frowned upon by everyone, but it is, sometimes it comes up. I have that now pocketed away for future information. That's good to know. Tom Bourne, though, let's talk about his race, because he's had a very, very strong race. Controlled the field, controlled the pace very much in the early stages. Christopher Woodard as well wanted to lead, but I think he just overpushed his tires. I think if you keep your eyes on Tom Bourne, he's going to do everything he can, not necessarily to be quick here, but to control the pace. He doesn't want that pace to accelerate up to absurdly high. Well, I mean, he does a little bit because it wears everyone else's tires, and then he's still got the fresh air. He wants to make sure he's still leading his pack in turn 3 and 4.
Yeah, and when we were talking about there being a lead pack of 7 cars, it quickly turned into a lead pack of 6 cars because Tom Bourne was starting to put some distance between himself and everybody else just prior to that caution coming out. Green flag back in the air on lap 23. As Tom Bourne will take the shorter distance into turn 1 over Jeremy Richmond. His teammate Woodard going to follow in his tire tracks, and Trey Whitehead drops down to the inside line there as well. Tom Bourne, as mentioned last week, finished last of the drivers at Daytona, 31st of the 31 drivers. 30 drivers took the green flag here tonight. So, obviously, we talk about the fact that the beginning races of a season can make or break whether or not you're going to get into the playoffs. With such huge car counts in the first 2 races, that's even more prevalent now than ever.
The statistic is that no matter what Tom Bourne does tonight, he'll automatically finish better than last week.
That's true.
So look, I mean, his race at Daytona, he had a shot. He was in the right places. He certainly gave himself an opportunity, and then things just didn't go his way. But that's just Daytona for you. You can't take anything away from that. You've got to reset yourself as a driver. I'm not a fan of super speedway races from a driver's perspective, and the reason for that is they're so easy to get frustrated over, but they mean next to nothing really. You can be a speedway specialist, but that's only going to come up a few times a year.
Battling back here is just outside the top 5. Aaron Brown, Patrick McQuaid, Alexander Kerfan. Also Alonso Chicano in this mix. 2 wide, almost 3 wide off of turn 2. Drivers fighting for position. Most drivers seeming to want to get up to that top side. Now we see a couple of drivers swapping down to that white line, the inside line through 3 and 4. So is it top side 1 and 2, inside line 3 and 4 for these guys, at least here in the early stages? Then we start seeing them break into the multi-groove racing again?
No. I think multi-groove racing sort of works, pretty much right the way through. And if you actually keep your eyes on Tom Bourne, he's fighting both cars on the fence.
That's Patrick McQuaid. We were just on board with him in the 77. I believe another driver and Chris Papa might have gotten into him, and we've got a wreck over there on the back straightaway now. Caution is out. Caldwell in the 12, I think, was another driver that may have gone up and gotten that outside wall off of 2.
It's just, again, showing how don't put anything past these drivers. A lot of these drivers got a lot of talent. And have a look at Brock Salvati, winner from last week. I mean, I said don't take anything in terms of a form guide away from a race at Daytona, but that doesn't mean that Brock Salvati's a bad driver. Brock Salvati's actually quite a good driver. When you can see him getting the fence, you know that this is a difficult racetrack. You know the difference between Atlanta and somewhere like Darlington is that Atlanta is so much wider. You've got so much more options on where you position the car and how you drive it, whereas Darlington, you just don't have that option. So, look, I mean, it's going to be a difficult race all night long for these guys, and ultimately, they've just got to be... Oh, there's so many big hits on the inside fence there, too.
Yeah, it was Chris Poppin, the 13, who took that really hard shot, nose first in the inside wall. Also saw the 9 of Christopher Lawrence was swept up in that one as well. So a couple of drivers that initially didn't realize were involved in the incident did get a piece of that spin off of turn 2. About 3 or 4 drivers spinning off of turn 2, and then some innocent victims just swept up in it.
Yeah, look, I mean, end of the day, it's close pack racing at this point in the time. Look, I mean, it's not easy, and especially with the way that cars handle different in the air pocket, as well as, you know, not just in the air pocket, but also within multiple air pockets. It's quite difficult. The cars start to handle completely and utterly differently, and the first few laps are a little bit exploratory, especially whilst the tires are coming up to temperature. This is actually a really good opportunity for Gene Cato, though. He had that early incident. He's now been down pit lane. He's got his car fixed up, and he's got both of his laps back. He's going to be at the tail end of this field here for this next restart, and he's got an option to come down and grab fresh tires. This is a really strong opportunity for Gene.
Looks like Chris Papa, Christopher Lawrence, as well as Ryan Sizemore, and now Cam Caldwell. Add him to the list of those that had to take on faster pairs getting involved in that incident. I actually also noticed, I'm not certain what happened to him, but apparently back under the first caution, Aaron Brown in the 95, who's currently running up in the 6th position, he used his faster pair already. So, unfortunate for him. I don't know if that was a mistake of him maybe not turning off faster pair, maybe he brushed the wall and got a little bit of damage or something and just didn't reset it to not use the faster pair this early on, but that puts him a little bit behind the 8 ball, and he's proved he's got a pretty fast car here. He's been up inside the top 10 and now just about to crack into the top 5 here, potentially going to restart in the 6th position. You talk about the fact that, you know, these 2 early wrecks, it's no reflection on the drivers, what they're dealing with. I mean, obviously, Atlanta, one of the...
I wouldn't say that. It's not no reflection on one of the drivers, but it's...
Oh, no,
it's
but what I'm saying is the conditions they're dealing with here at Atlanta, though. I mean, we've got the oldest track surface out here that these drivers are dealing with. We know Atlanta's going to get a repave, but not obviously here with this version that they're running here tonight. And take a look at the weather conditions as well. I mentioned at top of the program, triple-digit track temperature, 101 degrees. So not only do you have a worn-out track surface with hardly any grip, it's basically like you're driving on ice out there. There is no grip available to these tires whatsoever.
Yeah, this is actually a relative cool track temperature in terms of iRacing and daytime races. I mean, normally you'd be expecting the temperature to be up a high 40 Celsius, high into the 50s, which is about that 120 mark, I believe, in terms of Fahrenheit. So, look, I mean, ultimately there would be a little bit more grip on offer, and I actually think that that's making the drivers struggle more, because normally when you're practicing for a race like this, you would just automatically assume the worst in terms of conditions, right? So you're putting the track temperatures up, you're putting everything up, and you're going, okay, well, I have less grip on offer. Then, all of a sudden, you show up in the session, and you've got more grip. The cars are performing better. So you push that a little bit harder, then you wear the tires a little bit faster, then you start to create these really weird circumstances where the car's driving like it's got 5 to 10 laps older tires than it already has, and it's earlier in the run. You're adjusting the way that you're driving the car the whole night long. And it takes a really professional set of hands to be able to do that effectively. Ultimately, I think that's what's actually causing a lot of the issues, is the guys that are back there in the pack are still trying to adapt and still trying to learn the balance of what their cars look like right now.
I want to give a big thanks to Threat Level Midnight Motorsports for sponsoring tonight's race. You can head over and check them out on Facebook, give them a like. They got a few drivers actually in the field here tonight as well, so appreciate them sponsoring tonight's race here in BackFire Sim Racing's Cup Series. As 30 laps down, about to put lap 31 on the board, and Tom Bourne took the inside line on the last restart. He'll take the top side here on this restart, and he's going to get up through the gears very nicely. No wheel spin. He's going to easily clear the field by about maybe 2.5 car lengths before they even get to turn 1.
Yeah, so again, just strong restarts, just really trying to set himself up. He's done a phenomenal job so far this evening, and, you know, he just needs to continue doing that. He's looking after the tires well, he's driving the car very, very cleanly, very accurately, and ultimately, the other thing to consider here is we're only 30 laps in. These guys are still getting into their race pace. They're not pushing quite yet.
Back around the 8th position is where our double wide is here. That's teammates Aaron Brown, the 95, Alexander Kerfan in the 99, and Brock Whitehead thought about going up the middle 3 wide there, thought better of it, backed out, and now he'll drop back to around the 9th position. Cam Caldwell in that 12 machine, he may have actually been the fastest pair in the hole before getting involved in that incident off of turn 2 in the previous caution, because he's actually still sitting on pit lane getting damage repair done to his machine. 4 laps down, now 5 laps down as the leaders cross the start-finish line, so tough break there for the driver of the 12 machine. Not the way he wanted to start off this Atlanta race.
Yeah, alternatively, I think he was fine in terms of the fast repair. What I think's actually happened is that he's towed it back to pit lane, and if you don't toggle the fast repair on before you tow the car back to pit lane, it won't fast repair the car. So he's actually serving all of his repairs manually, which is disastrous in terms of his overall race strategy, unfortunately.
Right now, 28 drivers on the lead lap. Ron Gartner is the only driver out there running off the lead lap. Only 1 lap down, so if we get a caution, then he would get the lucky dog. Looking towards the tail end of this group, how about the 3 of Joshua Billiter? Nice run for him out of Sizemore Motorsports. Right on the back bumper of the 97 of last week's winner, Brock Silvati. And another driver back there having a decent outing is the 4 of Matthew Fleming. He's currently running in that 12th position.
Yeah, look, I mean, again, you know, settle in, find your slot, find your race pace. Fleming's doing a phenomenal job in one of his first showings in this league. I believe new driver debuted last week, and he's done a reasonable job in terms of his race pace there, and now showing up again this week, and he's putting himself in really strong positions with a really strong option to finish well. Ultimately, right now, he just needs to put the head down, keep clear, keep learning the drivers that are around him, and see what he can come out the other side with.
Well, the driver that was moving his way to the front early on in this race was Alonso Chicano, and he, again, being very aggressive here on this restart, just went around the outside of Trey Whitehead, and he's trying to get up here to the top 2. Keep an eye on that machine. He was very fast in practice, up inside the top 5 in practice speeds.
Yeah, ultimately, having a look at his grid, I mean, he just didn't get the qualifying run that he really needed to get down. I don't know if there was a mistake coming off of 3 and 4 on lap number 1, which compromises your momentum, it compromises your lap time on run number 1, and then it also, you know, you're not up to speed for lap number 2 would be most commonly what I would be expecting that's caused his issue there. Alternatively, Chicano, I've seen him drive in other leagues and whatnot as well. He's a driver definitely of some repute. The guy can definitely steer a car, very strong. He's taken wins whereby other drivers have dominated him all night long by just putting his car in the right places at the right times. And ultimately, that's what you need to do to win the race here. You only need to win 1 lap, and that lap may be the last one. And I think right now, he's just searching and just wanting to tail these guys, read them, make sure that when they make a mistake, he's there to pounce.
Chicano finished 5th last week at Daytona, subsequently comes into this race 5th in the point standings. Your top 5 coming into this as far as the points are concerned. Brock Silvati, obviously the points leader, was the winner last week. Aaron Brown 2nd, Kyle Gartner 3rd, Chris Woodard, who's currently holding down the runner spot, he's 4th, and Alonso Chicano is 5th. Everybody pretty much 1 point interval behind the others, so everybody coming into this race, if they raced last week at Daytona, they are 30 points or less out of the points lead. And I have a feeling here tonight as well with some of the drivers that we saw have some early issues. We saw the 49 of Kyle Gartner kind of fall to the back. Some other drivers that ran well last week have been falling back outside of the top 15 the longer this race has gone on. We're going to be seeing a lot of drivers gain maybe even double-digit points and lose double-digit points positions in the standings, leaving Atlanta. Also bear in mind this here, Scott, as well. You know, we ran 2 D-shaped mile-and-a-halves last season, Charlotte and Texas. This is the first time that these drivers have taken to Atlanta Motor Speedway under the BackFire Sim Racing banner.
Yeah, sure, underneath this banner, but that don't take anything away from it. The drivers would have been here earlier in the season, matching NASCAR, and when they're running official races. So, look, I mean, yes, under the BackFire sim racing and around these particular drivers, yes, this will be the first ever time that these guys will be out on track together, turning laps in a race together. But ultimately, these drivers are definitely aware of the scenario. They're aware of the difficulty that Atlanta presents itself. Atlanta is it's one of those tracks that it's fun to race because of how difficult it is. So a lot of these drivers will put a lot of time and effort into this one.
Battle was on for second place for a brief moment there. Alonso Chicano was almost to the left rear quarter panel of Chris Woodard, but wasn't quite able to get alongside to attempt the pass. He'll tuck back in line in the third position, just ahead of the 33 of Trey Whitehead. You drop back around the midway portion of the field. A couple of drivers that had to use their faster pairs early on, making some good forward progress. Chris Hubka in the 5 is now up to the 14th position. A couple cars behind him is the 13 of Chris Papa, the two of them sandwiching the 3 of Joshua Billiter. I'm wondering, because I asked you this question back at Daytona, and I wonder just even more how prevalent it is here at Atlanta with the slipping and sliding we've seen these drivers deal with in the early stages of this race. Less than 50 laps in, you're already a faster pair in the hole. How do you then change your approach here, especially for the long run at Atlanta, to make sure that you keep that car in one piece for the second half of this race?
Look, honestly, Seth, that's a phenomenal question. The guys right now, whatever they've practiced, when you go out and practice, it's about doing all your planning and your preparation then. Create yourself 1, 2, possibly 3 different ways that you can drive the car. Try and find some short run speeds so that when you need it, you have that ability to push as hard as you possibly can. Number 2, go out there and build a middle of the run stint. Make sure that you're conserving those tires early, and then you push in those middle stages. You end up in a similar sort of place over the long run to that short run speed. Then you also want to give yourself this really conservational run, no risk. Basically, what that style of a run looks like is you're backing up all the corners. You're trying to get the drive through the middle and the drive off, being very smooth with your throttle inputs. You're on the brakes a little bit harder, a little bit earlier. Maybe not even necessarily quite as hard on the brake, but you're on the brake for a longer period of time, trying to keep the car settled. Ultimately, the guys that are uncomfortable right now in terms of their fast repair situation, they need to stay just as far away from the walls and in a safe buffer. You're just trying to create a little bit of room to give yourself the opportunity to make a mistake without it being disastrous.
Got a car slow on the back straightaway, I believe it is. Oh, we got a wreck, actually. Ryan Sizemore was the car I saw was slow. He's up into the wall. David Modespa on the 1 has gone down and hit the inside wall. No caution coming out, though, because the 1 spin was below the white line, so theoretically off the racing surface, and the 8 never went around, just rode the outside wall into turn 3. Everyone was able to avoid him as he now brings it to pit road.
Unfortunate, and I mean, he just barely makes contact with the 1. I mean, at the end of the day, he's trying to save his car. He's trying to make sure that he doesn't do that to anybody else. He's trying to make sure that the racing is still clean. It's unfortunate. There's nothing that guy can do, and he's having a problematic night, and ultimately Ryan Sizemore's impacted somebody else's night. That's just racing, unfortunately. Sometimes you got to get lucky to win some races sometimes, and far more often you get unlucky.
And with no caution coming out, both those drivers are going to lose at least 1 lap, maybe more, as we saw that David Modespa had not even made it back to pit road before Tom Bourne, the race leader, came around to put him -1. So that's going to actually pick up a couple of spots for Ron Gartner, moving from 29th now up to 27th as we watch the battle for the 5th position between DJ Daniel in the 96 and Trey Whitehead in that 33 machine. Something we haven't talked about yet, and we have to, because this is the longest run these drivers have had so far here tonight, 28 laps into this stint. Pit road. I mean, we talk about the slick conditions out here on the racetrack itself. You then come off that banking down onto a relatively flat apron to try and get onto pit lane. We know that the cars already somewhat have a loose sensation with very little grip for those rear tires, and one thing I watched these guys doing during practice here was coming off of pit lane. I saw a number of drivers spinning out with that slight transition there on the upper portion of the apron and the flat lower area of the apron. I gotta wonder if that's something that these drivers have in the back of their head when they found themselves sideways coming out of pit lane under practice conditions.
things to note there. Yeah, look, I mean, Atlanta's one of those circuits that does have a banked section.
We're going to have almost a wreck. Sorry to cut you off, DJ Daniel. He is going to spin off the nose of Aaron Brown onto pit road. No caution, however, as again it was technically off the racing surface. But DJ Daniel, two-time mile-and-a-half winner last season, has run into issues here on lap 50.
And ultimately, that's actually caused by the 33 machines turned him around, and then his teammate, Aaron Brown's, just sort of finished him off at the end of the day. There's not much he could have really done in terms of DJ Daniels' perspective and what he was doing. There was a car underneath him, and the car underneath him got a much better drive to the middle of the corner, and they just tried to inhabit the same section of racetrack.
Now, I don't necessarily know. Maybe you can shed some light on this. Does that draw a penalty to the 96? He did take service, but he did not come down pit lane entry. Yeah,
he will. He'll receive one of two penalties, potentially both of them. He'll receive a speeding in pit lane penalty, and then he'll also receive an unsafe pit entry, because ultimately you haven't joined pit lane from the registered pit lane entry line. So, car on pit lane.
That's Joshua Billitzer in the 3. I think this is regularly scheduled for him.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think that is as well. Just trying to have a look. When did he last pit? So he last pit on lap 20. So he's gone 30 laps on a set of tires. He says, I've got those fresh ones in the bank. The tire fall-off's actually in the realm of, 3 to 4 seconds at the moment. So this is actually a really good optional strategy. So let's talk strategy. If you're in Tom Bourne's position and your tires are running the way that you want them and you're punching phenomenal laps out, you're very quick, you're gonna want to stay out there. Why? Because you have an advantage over your opposition. You want your opposition to show their hand before you do. The instant somebody else immediately behind him that's not a teammate, mind you, so Christopher Woodard is out of that equation, he will come down. If Woodard goes down pit lane just to cover off the alternative strategy and create a different kind of strategy, that's when you'll see all the other guys behind him pit, and then Tom Bourne will pit to cover all of them off.
Wesley Jeanette coming down pit lane, the 74. Saw moments ago that Ron Gartner in the 39, the lap machine, was on pit road, and been watching this really fun battle for second place. It's a battle of two different lines. Chris Woodard takes the extreme outside line right up against the wall. Chicano hooks the inside line against the white line there towards the apron. They kind of hold court with each other. Nobody gains, nobody loses time. They stay pretty stationary.
Yeah, but this all a strategy as well. This is all intended to burn up Chicano's tires. Ultimately, at this point in time where you can't keep the car down on that lower line, you lose a lot of momentum just trying to keep it down there. It's burning up Alonso Chicano's tires. He's not able to run the optimal line. He's losing pace. He's losing momentum. This is Woodard all trying to play the race in towards Tom Bourne's hands.
Looks like another driver's hitting pit lane. That's the 83, Brock Whitehead. Gonna duck onto pit lane. He's got some right front damage I just noticed there. Don't know if he made contact with another car, maybe got up into the wall, but he's now gonna come down to the attention of his crew here on lap 55. We do have our first official retiree out of this race. Not the start to the season that Ryan Sizemore was looking for. 30th last week at Daytona, and right now being scored 29th out of this race after being involved in that incident on the back straightaway that did not bring out a caution. So back-to-back DNFs for the driver out of Sizemore Motorsports.
It's unfortunate for Ryan Sizemore. I mean, he's got an option here. Really, really good potential for some results. He just needs to just keep that car out of trouble, ultimately, I think is the biggest issue that he's struggling with at this point in time. And if he can keep his head down and stay free and clear of trouble, I think he's got a strong attempt.
I wonder how much stuff did Alonso Chicano use up in trying to get around Chris Woodard, because Jeremy Richmond made that pass for the third position look relatively easy, and now he'll be the one to try and take the second place away from the 24. This three-way battling for the runner-up spots going on over 2.5 seconds behind Tom Bourne, who is just setting sail on the field. And looking right now in terms of lap time fall-off, best lap for Tom Bourne was a 30.8. Right now running about 2 seconds slower, 32.8. But still, if you look at him compared to the other drivers behind him, he's running anywhere from 2 to 4 tenths faster than the rest of the field.
Man, yeah, look, I mean, he's looked after his tires. Remember how I said that getting fresh air to that nose was the best possible thing you can do for your race car? Yeah, that guy's... Oh, all three of the second place pack all just caught the outside wall coming off of 1 and 2. Every one of them is struggling. I would estimate that I think Chicano... Is he going to come to pit road?
He might. He's slow there on the inside of 3 and 4.
Yeah, he's coming. He's coming. Oh, that looks like a speeding penalty too for Chicano.
Yeah, that was awfully hot towards that commitment cone, that's for sure. We'll have to see if that's going to... Have to see if the speeding police are going to have to come out in full force here for the 25, who ducks onto pit lane, undoubtedly to get some of the damage repaired there after getting up into the wall. Chris Woodard and Jeremy Richmond, they still continue on.
Oh, he's going to be about 15, 20 miles an hour over the speed limit. Like, he's dead in the water. That'll be a penalty for sure for Chicano.
See TJ Roberts back there in the 11.
He got away with it.
Ton of damage.
He got away with it. His pit stop wasn't slow at all. His pit stop was regulation, so Chicano's gotten away with that one.
We'll see how this is going to cycle him around. Obviously, with getting in the wall, that's going to lose him some time. But we'll see after he, Woodard, and Richmond, after all three of them get their pit stops completed, if we do complete this round of green flag pit stops, where he's going to cycle around with those fresh tires. Saw TJ Roberts go a lap down. He got some pretty good front-end damage along the way at some point in this race. And also the 38 of Clifford Corbeau just went a lap down. Those two actually battling for the free pass position right now. That would be for 20th.
Hubka just sent it down the inside 3 wide on Zach Woods and Chris Hubka. That guy's being aggressive, and he needs to be. He's got that fresh rubber underneath him. He's got to be aggressive right now.
Good battle here for 7th. Aaron Brown, last week's runner-up finisher, and Anthony Zirkle, who struggled last week in the season opener, finished 16th in that race. Solid outing for him right now, trying to take that 7th position away from the 95.
Curious, Seth, do you reckon Tom Bourne's going to run this tank out? Because, like, this guy's got... Right now, he's got the best pace. He's pulled 4 seconds over P2, and a lot of that gap has actually come from the incident that Christopher Woodard, Alonso Chicano, and I think the 98 of Jeremy Richmond nearly had off of 1 and 2. I get that feeling he's going to run this tank out. He's got the strongest car out there. He's in an incredibly controlled position, so there's a really good opportunity for him to just run this tank out, keep controlling the race, and let something happen and bring it back to him.
Yeah, now 43 laps into this run and still running anywhere from a tenth to 2 tenths faster than anybody else inside the top 10 that has not yet been to pit lane. If you come to pit lane, you run the risk that somebody stays out and traps you a lap down. So I think absolutely with the dominant car that Tom Bourne has had, you run that thing until it's on fumes, then you come to pit lane. Usually you would expect at Atlanta it's tires over fuel. I think it's the complete opposite right now for the 54.
Yeah, just ultimately... I would agree with you. Tires are definitely a big concern. You can run the tank out, but it gets really, really sketchy. Car doesn't want to turn whatsoever into the last 10, 15 laps unless you've been really looking after that right front tire on these things. So, look, ultimately, he's done a great job so far. Really looked after the tires, giving him a strong position. 75% is the fuel limit, so we will be coming up on maximum distance on fuel, I would say, in the next 5 to 10 laps, and I think that's those cars that you're starting to see on pit lane. That's them hitting their fuel limits.
Those are teammates at a 1.3 speed. Chris Pop in the 13, Christian Ruse in the 14, coming down to the attention of their crews. And here comes some more from the top 5. Alexander Kerfan has ducked onto pit lane. That's also Trey Whitehead in the 33 following him down.
Now, interesting to note for those 3 cars that are in the top 4 that all caught the fence off of 1 and 2, do you take a fast repair here? It's a little bit of damage to that front right, but that's the most critical section of the car to make sure that you're not overworking the tires, as Tom Bourne's going to take to the lane as well this time by. So these guys have now hit maximum distance. So...
Bourne and Woodard down pit lane. Now, Alonso Chicano, who was one of those 3 drivers that got the wall, he did not use his fast repair on his pit stop. We'll see here about the 24 car, who was another of those that scraped the outside wall off of turn 2, and Jeremy Richmond was the 3rd driver. He's actually going to stay out here to lead a lap. His teammate Brock Savati stays out there with him as well. Anthony Zirkle, Aaron Brown, Matthew Fleming. That's the top 5 at this point in time. The top 10 are yet to make a pit stop here under green flag conditions, and here comes Richmond now down pit lane in the 98.
So this would be an interesting scenario for Tom Bourne at this point in time. He's going to come back out behind Alonso Chicano, but Chicano, remembers, already pit. Chicano's, 7, 8 laps sort of earlier on a pit road. So his lap times will have already fallen off by about a second potentially per lap. The other cars he's going to have to overtake as well are a lot of the guys that come down under our last caution. I'm looking at Michael Shaw, right through to Kyle Gardner. These guys, Brock Silvati, I think, come down pit road a little bit earlier. No, Brock Silvati was involved in the last caution, so he's one of those drivers at this point in time. So you've got drivers on a whole range of different pit lane strategies, so it's going to be curious to see how long these drivers opt to run it out.
Boy, you look all the way through the field, you see a lot of slicing and dicing, and mostly it's the drivers on older tires trying to maneuver their way out of the way of the drivers on fresh tires trying to get by them.
And when we're talking about difficulty in terms of overtaking, this stint here is going to be the tricky one for everyone, because right now you've got a lot of guys that are on very, very fresh rubber trying to get by guys. That takes a lot of effort on the rubber. It puts extra heat in. It puts extra wear into those tires because you're trying to drive the car a little bit harder just to make sure that you can get by them on corner entry and corner exit. You're running lines that you really don't want to run just to try and get the most out of the car at this point in time. You've got the fresh rubber underneath you. So ultimately, I expect times and tires to fall off a little bit quicker this run because everyone's got to navigate traffic.
Still waiting on Aaron Brown in the 95. Looks like he's going to cross lanes and now pit this time by Kyle Gartner in the 49. In second place, going to follow him in. Zach Woods is also going to come down pit road this time. Looks like everybody that pretty much had to make a pit stop is making it now. This is going to turn the race lead over to Michael Shore, who you alluded to can go a little bit further than some of these guys because he pitted under the last caution.
Yeah, it's interesting. A really good opportunity for Michael Shorey as well. I got to show some favoritism to him for being an Australian. He's actually just a bang-up guy as well. Really nice guy to talk to. Generally really social. Loves to hang out when he's running league races like these. He's just having a good time. He's out here having a bit of fun. So, look, guys definitely struggled last week. Was not happy with some of the guys he was around. Christopher Woodard, I believe, was one of those drivers. Chris really wanted to push him. Really wanted to put some pace under that car, and Shaw wasn't happy with how that was playing out, and I think we saw the potentially the edginess come out from that. But this week, I mean, he settled himself down. I think he's been involved in a few different things. So his first goal, I think, for me, is going to be get himself settled into this league, get some strong performances, get some strong finishes, which is different from a strong performance because you got to keep that car clean.
Well, it only took him 70 laps and a round of green flag pit stops to put him from shotgun on the field in his starting spot to out in front leading this race at Atlanta Motor Speedway, but he will be having to come to pit road somewhere in the next 10 laps, as will Gene Cato in the 2 machine. There he is, just a couple of car lengths behind the 07. Of course, Gene Cato did not have the night start out the way he wanted, fell a couple of laps down, but those early yellows got him the lucky dogs he needed to get back on the lead lap, and currently running in that second position. Thing I definitely noticed here, Scott, the interval that Tom Bourne had over second place, it was about 2.5 seconds when the pit stops began. Alonso Chicano, he is starting to close in little by little. It was about 2.5 seconds, actually 2.4 seconds when I last looked. He might be dealing with traffic though, because it just actually opened up to 3 seconds, but I think that he had a bit of an advantage with the fresh tires early on, might be starting to equal out now.
Yeah, well, no, actually, his lap time should be much more significantly slower than Tom Bourne's, and the reason for that, he come to pit lane, 6-7 laps earlier than Tom Bourne. So ultimately, what you're seeing there, Seth, is actually the undercut. He's come to pit lane very, very early, has Alonso Chicano, and he's, he had that incident, he was slow, and he opted to take the minimal loss. He was already slow, doesn't have to try and spend a bunch of time getting back up to speed, came to pit road. I think he made a smart decision there. What you'll see now is he'll slowly drift back. He's really going to manage that car, make sure he's still picking off traffic when and where he can, but also make sure that he's making it difficult for cars to pass him, because that's how he'll control the race from here.
Got another car on pit lane. That is TJ Roberts in the 11. Regularly scheduled stop for him as he was off sequence with everybody else. He had pitted under the last caution as well. Tom Bourne under fire here from Patrick McQuaid, who's trying to keep himself on the lead lap. Right now with the 77 making that pass. 18 drivers currently on the lead lap as Gene Cato and Michael Shore. They're now going to give up the first and second positions to come to pit lane. Tom Bourne going to re-inherit the lead, and another driver has since gone to the garage area. Brock Whitehead in the 83 made the hard left-hand turn to the garage. He will finish, it looks like, 28th here this evening.
Well, that's disappointing for Brock. I mean, he was running quite strong very, very early on. Admittedly, it looked like he was struggling a little bit with the looseness in the rear end of the car. Calmed down, collected a few drivers. I think he just got in one too many incidents tonight, and that's unfortunate for him. Again, I saw pace from that car. Another car I really want to see some consistency start to show itself out of. If he can do so, I think he's going to be a strong finish towards the tail end of the season.
So we saw drivers come down pit lane after the first caution. Everybody came down pit road, took on a fresh set of tires. We were only about 6 laps into the race. Tom Bourne made his last pit stop back on lap 66. What are we thinking here for all of these drivers? Because I would think, in the next 5 to 7 laps, they would be within the fuel window to make it the rest of the way, but I doubt so soon after taking on the tires they just did that they're going to be coming down pit road again. So is this coming down now to possible pit strategy and pit stops in the final 10 laps of this race if we remain under the green flag?
I think they're going to be targeting their pit stops, not necessarily run it all the way up. Probably sometime around anywhere from about lap 90 to 94, all the way through to 100, 105. I think if you pit anywhere outside of that window, you're losing too much time where you're spending that track time on older rubber. It's not as good rubber, you're not really getting the benefit out of that. Guys that have just pit, they're going to look to go at an alternative strategy. They're going to be looking to pit about lap 110. I'm looking at Michael Shaw, any of the other guys that have just sort of recently come in, they were off cycle to everyone else, and they've shuffled themselves towards the front, using that off-cycle time. So there's a few different opportunities here playing their way out throughout the field, whether or not the drivers use them, and I think if I'm going to make an estimate, Tom Bourne's going to come down about lap 98.
Right now holds over 6 seconds back to his teammate Chris Woodard, and then another 2 and 3/10 back to Alexander Kerfan, who's done a nice job of working his way up through the field. Currently in P3. He and Woodard actually got around Alonso Chicano a couple of laps ago, dropping the 25 back to the 4th position, and he is in about a couple of laps maybe going to fall back into the clutches of the 5th place driver. That currently is Trey Whitehead. Jeremy Richmond, the pole sitter, sits in 6th. Brock Silvati, last week's winner, is 7th. Anthony Zirkle, Wesley Jeanette, and Aaron Brown right now completing your top 10, as we have 17 drivers currently on the lead lap with 50 laps to go, but pretty much ever since the drop of the green flag, for the most part, they've all been chasing Tom Bourne.
And again, there's not... I heard a few drivers whispering on the radio, oh man, Tom Bourne's doing such a great job. How can he be doing such a strong job? His I rating's so close to us in terms of everything, but ultimately, at the end of the day, Tom Bourne's had clear air almost the entire race, and especially the only time that he hasn't had clear air that somebody else has led a few laps from him was Christopher Woodard in that very, very early run. Since then, it's been basically Tom Bourne running pretty much from all of the, especially all of the safety car restarts. So, look, I mean, he's had clean air. He's been able to hang on to his tires because his aero package has not been compromised. But then again, that takes skill. His control, like I said, you've got to control the pace. And even though he was out in the lead, he made sure that he didn't push early, that he did look after those tires. He used the aero package to its utmost. And what you're seeing now is just the extension of that.
Now, obviously, as we saw earlier on, DJ Daniel getting spun down towards pit lane. We're not going to count this towards the statistic here because obviously that was out of his control, and he obviously had to serve that penalty. But of all the drivers that came down pit lane there under green flag conditions, kudos to all of them because they did a masterful job of making sure they got their cars down to pit road speed, getting off that slippery apron. Only 3 drivers received speeding penalties during that round of green flag pit stops. The 22 of Mike Sibanovsky, the 07 of Michael Shore, and the 11 of TJ Roberts all had to sit there for an additional 30 seconds, but everybody, for the most part, did a good job of making sure they got onto a pretty treacherous pit lane here under green flag conditions.
Yeah, ultimately, I mean, a lot of drivers push the apron, and I don't think any as much as the 25 of Alonso Chicano, like that guy.
Oh! Wreck in the back, that is Chris Hubka and Wesley Jeanette, who were battling just inside of the top 10.
I tell you what, this field is all kinds of mixed up in terms of lap traffic, where guys are playing their way out in terms of pit strategy and those sorts of things as well. This is going to equalize the field. It is guaranteed to be a one-stop race from here. You have to make one more stop after this. So everyone's going to come down pit lane. Everyone's going to top off. everyone's going to take tires. The reason for that is you need to play yourself into the equation. When they take that last pit stop, though, well, there's a lot of different options. This spices the race back up again.
Two things. Both Wesley Jeanette and Chris Hubka had already used their fast repairs. You saw that extensive front-end damage on the 5. The other thing I'm thinking here, we're into the second half of this race. Everybody's going to get bunched back up. The old adage, cautions breed cautions. These restarts are going to be quite interesting. And there you see the contact between the 74 and the 5. Might have just been a case of not knowing that one wasn't clear on the other, but had catastrophic results for both, who were mounting great comeback runs after having to use their fast repairs early on in this race.
Thing is, like, have a look at the section of the track that they're at. The track pinches quite hard there. It's the narrower section of the circuit. It's very, very difficult. Ultimately, when you're still getting used to the track, especially on longer runs, a lot of drivers find themselves clouding that outside wall right at that section of the track. Ultimately, Chris Hubka, I don't think he's just aware that the 74 is going to come down as far as he does, and it's just a mistake, you know. Look, I mean, everyone makes them at some point in their career. Unfortunately, it looks like Chris Hubka's made his right now.
Chris Hubka, tough break there after last week at Daytona. He ended up bringing home that number 5 machine. I believe it was inside of the top 15. I'm going to have to double check on where Hubka actually finished that race. But everybody, it looks like, for the most part, hit pit road, with the exception of a few here. Scott, Alexander Kerfan, Brock Silvati, Anthony Zirkle, and Kyle Gartner all elect to stay out. So what are they thinking?
Oh, they're thinking that they're going to be able to create something out of this. I think this is just a mistake. Ultimately, like I said, it is going to be a one-stop race to the end. If this goes green, these guys are, well, there's no kind way of saying it, screwed, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm almost expecting that they'll come back down pit. Is Tom Bourne coming back to the lane?
Yes, he is.
Did Tom Bourne get a penalty?
I'm not sure, but he is back down pit road.
So
DJ
the
Daniel
reason
in the
why
96 on pit road as well.
The reason why I asked chat if he got a penalty here, this is quite Ooh, they can make it and fuel from here. Tom Bourne. Okay, so what he's doing here, he's refilling the tank. He knows that he can make it from here. The fastest way to the end of the race from here is not the flat out way. It's the fuel save way. And Tom's aware of this. The issue for Tom is he's mired back in the pack. If there is any more cautions, he gets a freebie back to the front of the pack, and he's much better than his rivals on fuel. The issue for him here is that the longest part of the pit stop is tires, and you will not be going another pit stop without taking tires. That much is for sure.
Things could get very interesting here in the closing stages if we do manage to run the remainder of this race under green flag conditions. I double-checked. Actually, Chris Hubka did not take part in last week's race at Daytona, so tough first race for him here in Season 2 as he is back out on the racetrack. They did repair that car as best they could. He is one lap down. The lucky dog under that caution, I believe, was the 14 of Christian Ruse. So 17 drivers will be on the lead lap when we receive the green flag. Brock Silvati will line up to the outside of his teammate Alexander Kerfan, who's going to be leading us back to green. Anthony Zirkle, Chris Woodard are going to line up in the second row. Alonso Chicano, Jeremy Richmond, Trey Whitehead, Aaron Brown, Wesley Jeanette, who is involved in that yellow flag there, and Chris Papa. That's going to be the top 10 when we go back green flag racing here with less than 50 laps to go at Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Oh, look, I mean, this is just all of a sudden become exciting. I'm going to be right back. I have to go find out what happened to Tom Bourne there. It's killing me that I don't know.
All right, as Scott figures that out here, we're going to have the top 3 on older tires. 22-lap-old tires for Kerfan, 19-lap-old tires for Brock Silvati, and 21-lap-old tires for Anthony Zirkle. Then you got the fresh tires of Christopher Woodard, that 24 on the outside of row 2. Let's see what this is going to be like here. As the 61 not able to get through the gear. Actually, the entire top 3 did not get going. May have spun the tires. It stacks them up from second place on back. Kerfan going to lead them into turn 1, but watch that 24 who has loved the high line. He's got Chicano all over his back bumper. The fresh tires trying to move to the front.
Okay, update Update from Tom Bourne, he got damage. So that's why he was back down pit road. He was actually getting that fixed out. Then, he also said to me, now I know that I'm good on fuel. He thinks that there's a big question mark over some of these other drivers on whether they can make it. They're going to have to do a lot more saving than Tom Bourne. Tom Bourne is going to be much, much better. He can push much harder, and that's why you can see him grabbing a bunch of places on this restart.
There may be a question mark on whether they can make it to the checkered flag on fuel. My question is, do they have enough car to be able to get to the checkered flag with the way they're racing right now? Car in the wall.
Oh, right up front.
Right in front of Patrick McQuaid, and I think that was also Matthew Fleming that he was in front of. Everybody fanning down, one driver to the apron to avoid. That was Lawrence, who had to go all the way down below the white line to avoid hitting the drivers with that stack up. Look at Tom Bourne up the middle, 3 wide.
Yeah, grabs both Silvati and the 77 of Patrick McQuaid. So McQuaid was really out of sequence, lost a lot of momentum. He's going to grab another one here.
Up to the 7th position, Tom Bourne. Man, we know that car was strong and clean air. Oh, caution! It's going to be David Modespa and Gene Cato
again.
Oh. That's over in 1 and 2.
What were we talking about? Were the track pinches coming down into 1 and 2? I think that's exactly the same scenario that we just seen play itself out again.
And that is a tough break there, because that is teammates out of Spin Move Racing getting together. That's Gene Cato's race probably over. I think the same could be said for Dave Modespa, whose car is smoking there on the inside of the exit of turn number 2.
And there's another car that's made a huge impact into them as well.
See if we can find out who that was as we go back
Michael
here to
Shaw
the
gets into it, so that's another spin move. And the 22 machine, who's that? That's Mike Sabanovsky.
Oh, it's the 39 of Ron Gartner, who I think initiated the contact there.
Yeah.
Very similar to what we saw happen with Jeanette and Hubka over there in turn 1. Just one car coming down, one car coming up. That car coming down, I'm almost wondering if it's almost like it's tightening up going into the corner and they're yanking hard left on the wheel.
He's got in the wall. He's got in the wall. So what happens is it slows that car down. So what actually happens, this is actually how, if you ever heard of a skid steer terminology in terms of tanks are the perfect example, bobcats, those sorts of things, any sort of dirt moving equipment, they have 2 tracks. Skid steer just means one side of the car will be driving faster than the other. That's actually how they turn, rather than having wheels that turn, because they don't really have the ability to manipulate any of their axles. They don't really have a point whereby they can turn the tracks. That just does not work with tracks. So what's happened here, collected the wall, it's actually turned the car harder to the right, which then, as soon as the car bounces off the wall, it directs it back down to the left-hand side of the track. Unfortunately, Motorsport's just there. Ultimately, Gartner's made a mistake. He's too far up the track. He can't see guidance points to try and direct himself around the track, and he just makes a mistake, comes down. There's just nothing that anyone could have done in that scenario.
As you mentioned, the 07 of Michael Shore getting involved, and maybe contact or maybe a near miss there for Chris Hubka. He was right around that. I don't know if he got just a slight piece of it or if he was able to just barely get low enough on the apron to avoid the 2 of Gene Cato spinning back down the racetrack. But nonetheless, 4th caution of the day going to come out here and maybe help some of those drivers in one sense that decided to stay out under the last caution, because all 3 of them have now come down pit lane. They'll put on some fresh Goodyears, but they also gave up a ton of track position to do so.
Okay, so I can guarantee that Chris Hubka did get damage out of that, and it's to the right front corner as well. So, unfortunately, I would say that he's going to have quite heavy... Well, I mean, he was already slow. He already had engine damage, so that's just going to make things worse, unfortunately, for him. Potentially lose some of the camber out of the right front tire as well. So, unfortunate for him. Not a strong showing for him tonight. Again, like I said, a lot of the race is about keeping yourself clean. Yeah, look, I mean, let's talk about race scenario for a few of these guys that have just come down pit load. Who are we looking at? Probably, what, Mike Sabanovsky? No, his lap's down, so he's not really playing himself into it. Wesley Jeanette, I believe it was one of the ones. Lap 92, yeah, so he's just come down pit road. Ultimately, we've only done a couple of laps on these tires, so the fall-off is going to be so minor. There will be some wear on them, will be some heat on them. But at the end of the day, anyone that's coming down pit road at the moment, they're going to be guaranteed on fuel the same way that Tom Bourne is, but also these couple laps on the pacing, anyone should be good to the end from fuel now, provided the pit in the last 2 cautions.
Yeah, 74 of Wesley Jeanette actually got the lucky dog under this caution, so 17 drivers will be on the lead lap. Actually, correction, 18 drivers will be on the lead lap when we go back green. The 3 that came down pit road that stayed under the last caution, it'll have the fresh tires, Brock Silvati, Alexander Kerfan, and Anthony Zirkle, and it looks like the 14 of Christian Ruse also came down pit lane and topped off his fuel tank a lap ago. Zachary Woods, the first time that pit road was open, came down and topped off the fuel tank as well. So the 16 and the 14 absolutely guaranteeing that they'll be able to make it the rest of the way on what they've got in the tank. 1 lap to green as the lights go out atop the pace car. Christopher Woodard is going to be leading us back here for this green flag run. Aaron Brown to his outside. Chris Papa now up to the 3rd position. Alonso Chicano's been very aggressive on the restarts. He'll be in 4th. Jeremy Richmond, the poles that are trying to go coast to coast, restarts in 5th. Matthew Fleming, Tom Bourne, who has dominated the race up to this point, now finds himself back in 7th with Christopher Lawrence, Trey Whitehead, and Patrick McQuaid. That is the top 10 as we prepare to go back green flag racing. Now getting set for a restart with 35 laps to go. Actually, it'll be 36 when they take the green flag this time.
Yeah, so this all of a sudden turns into a no-stop race. These guys are going to be green to the end, provided that they can go that distance. So, you know, head down, see what can happen.
So far, we've worked 4 cautions here today, 2 of them in the first 20 laps of the race, 2 of them in the last 10 laps of this race. We'll see what we're in for here, as it could come down to some fuel strategy in the closing stages of this one for a few drivers. Several drivers, though, know they can make it on what they've got in the tank. Green flag back in the air. Woodard up through the gears. Easily going to clear for the top position before they get to the start-finish line. Brown cuts down in front of Chris Papa to hold the 2nd spot, leaving Papa and Chicano alongside for 3rd.
Again, this is another one of those scenarios that just plays itself so favorably out to the leader. You want to see everybody fighting. You want these guys to be burning up their rubber. You want them to be fighting.
Saw 3 wide again back there. Tom Bourne in the middle. Tyler Whitehead, Trey Whitehead rather, was on the inside. They settle it out to double wide. Christopher Lawrence in the 9, putting the pressure on Matthew Fleming for 6th. Battle for the lead. Aaron Brown to the inside of Christopher Woodard for the top position.
Yeah, let's actually clear him if he can slide up. And look at that. Woodard just pinches him down. Make sure that he can't maintain that momentum. He hasn't got the opportunity to slide up.
Into the wall hard goes Aaron Brown, the 95. He's back up onto the racing surface. Caution is going to fly. Aaron Brown in a move for the lead. It goes horribly wrong after he and Woodard got together.
That's on Woodard. Woodard's just made a mistake there.
Aaron Brown finished runner-up to his teammate last week. Brock Silvati wanted to finish 1 position better this week at Atlanta. And just like that, the 95 all torn up. And bear in mind, as I mentioned back in the beginning stages of this race, he had actually already used his fast repair, so that could be race over for the driver out of JKR Motorsports. We'll look at it again here off of turn 2. And yeah, 24 just ran too wide, got the outside wall, and unfortunately, the 95 of Aaron Brown was the saving grace for him, but Brown paid the price.
Look, I just heard a lot of drivers complaining about it on the radio. Oh, wow, man, you're not gonna, that's a real low move. The guy just made a mistake. Like, to be perfectly honest with you, he got high, car gets a little bit loose, he dodges the wall. His first and foremost goal there is to keep the car out of the wall. He's fighting for the lead. He's pushing this thing to the absolute maximum. The guy makes a mistake, slides down the track. Ultimately, unfortunately for Aaron Brown, he's just there. There's literally nothing about the only thing that prevents that accident is Woodard not making the mistake, and he makes a mistake. That's NASCAR, baby. Sometimes that just happens. There is no malice in that move whatsoever.
Yep, just all part of racing, and it's not the first time we've seen a driver have issues with the car pushing up there and getting close to the wall off of turn 2. Several drivers have had that issue here today. As a matter of fact, lap 1 we end up having a driver have that issue. So it's not as if that's something new these drivers have had to face during the course of this Atlanta race, but that is unfortunately going to take Aaron Brown out of today's event with less than 40 laps to go. He will more than likely, it looks like, finish around the 26th position with the drivers that are still being scored on the track and in this race. You saw just moments ago there, the 96 of DJ Daniel go around the pace car. He is the recipient of the lucky dog. So 17, make that 18 drivers will be on the lead lap. DJ Daniel, who got trapped the lap down because of the contact between himself, the 33, and Aaron Brown, the 95, that sent him to pit road midway down pit road in the infield grass. Had to serve the penalty, and it dropped him off the lead lap. So he'll be back on the lead lap here, looking to pick up his third career mile-and-a-half win in the BackFire Sim Racing League Cup Series, but not a whole lot of time and quite a number of cars that he's going to have to pass to do so.
Yeah, I was actually I just jumped back up to the JKR Motorsports channels just to have a quick chat to those guys, and I mean, at the end of the day, like, they're struggling. Everyone's struggling. I mean, you know, there's not much that they can really do, and they're actually down to be interviewed. So I'll just see if I can grab one of their drivers.
All right, we'll see if we can talk with one of them here, as we still are waiting for the lights to go out top the pace cars. So, see who we're gonna dial up.
Jeremy Richens said he was available, actually.
All right, we'll see if we can talk with Jeremy here. Jeremy right now running in the 4th position. Hey, Jeremy, guys up here in the FRM booth, you got us?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, so, man, it looks like a lot of drivers slipping and sliding out there. You had that thing on the pole. You've kept it up there inside the top 5 most of the day, getting ready to restart here. Closing in on 30 laps to go in the 4th position. What's the thought process here, especially with the fact we've had a couple of pretty chaotic restarts?
Yeah, I mean, I have a fast car. I just, from the get-go, I didn't want to push it. So, you know, I'll let those guys do 3 wide and just try to work my way back up as I can, you know. So I don't really know what I have as far as top speed and with this higher ratio I'm running. You know, I run a low ratio for qualifying, so we'll see what I got here. I'm just been saving fuel, saving tires. We'll see what I got.
I mean, that last accident, what's brought out the caution, I mean, it happened to one of your teammates in Aaron Brown. I mean, ultimately, we were looking at it. Jared, to be perfectly honest, I mean, you got to feel for Aaron 100% here. He's Woodard's just made a mistake at the end of the day. Car's just got loose on corner exit. It's come down, and that's a rough break for Aaron.
Yeah, it's a rough break. You know, it is what it is, though. They're racing hard. I see it happening up there, so I'm just waiting, you know, buying my time.
I mean, how difficult is it to drive, especially up in that high line off of 1 and 2 where you're in the throttle so hard? The rear tires are both cold in that opening lap, and you're putting a lot of force through them because that's when they've got their most grip as well.
Honestly, I mean, my car's on rails. I'm just trying to manage the tires. I haven't had any of that issues that anybody else has been having.
All right, man, well, those lights are out.
Yep, we'll let you get back to it there, Jeremy. Best of luck here.
Appreciate it.
Chris Woodard going to lead us back to green. Alonso Chicano to his outside. 30 laps to go. Couple of drivers getting squirrely there, spinning those rear tires. Chris Papa in the 13 was one of them. That's going to allow Richmond to try and go around the top side for the 3rd spot in 1 and 2.
Yeah, we'll see if they can settle back in. I mean, Jeremy Richmond, we just talked to him. He feels like he's on rails. He feels like he's got a very, very strong race car. And I mean, like that sounded like a driver who was comfortable. That sounded like a driver who was pretty sure that he was going to drive it down here into the podium at some point this race.
Oh, tucks it right in front of Tom Bourne, who then had to maybe check up a little bit. Almost had Chris Papa into the back of him for the 3rd position on back. Now they're going to make their way around the 25 of Alonso Chicano, who I think may have gotten a little loose off of turn 4.
And Chicano's been struggling too. I mean, you know, you got to keep your eyes peeled here. Tom Bourne last pitted lap 86, guy that is definitely good on fuel. Last couple cautions would have made a lot of drivers good on fuel. That top groove is where all the pace is, though, and look at it. Tom Bourne 6 in that lower groove, loses a little bit of momentum, slides back multiple places, but there's cars with issues here.
Man, things got really tight there off of turn 4. 3 wide with Trey Whitehead, Chris Papa, and Tom Bourne. And Bourne was almost into the left rear quarter panel of the 13. It's amazing all 3 of those drivers made it off the final corner.
Time, what great driving by all 3 of those drivers. They all knew where the other cars were. They were making mistakes and still able to create the pace. You can see Tom Bourne trying to make an overtake on the bottom side of the track. He's really trying to get the car down. Another caution.
Caution is out, as it's going to be Michael Shore in the 07
Oh,
on the
not
back
the ultimate.
straightaway. Saw another driver out of shape back there, but saved. I think that was the 14 of Christian Ruse towards the back of the pack, but it is the 07 bringing out the 6th caution of the day. Shore was running 3 laps down to the leaders in the 23rd position at the time.
Yeah, I mean, he's just trying to drive his way all the way back up into the point standings, doing what he possibly can, and unfortunately, he's just made a mistake there. I'm not 100% sure if he's got a fast repair left over, but for the Down Under Thunder, I really, really hope that he does.
He does indeed have a faster pair available, as man, that's a hard shot. You can just see the back end of the car, the rear wheels come off the racing surface. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the safer barrier ends midway down the back straightaway. I don't think he hit safer barrier, so that is a hard shot for that race car.
Yeah, you can see it. He's definitely impacted the inside of the wall. I mean, the whole front end of the car crumpled in. He's lost, a lot of places there. He's not had a great race, to be perfectly honest with you. At the end of the day, he's kept the car in the race. He's still running in 25th position. There are definitely guys out there that have had worse days, and he's, attempted to keep himself in contention, and he's still out there. He's still turning laps. Interesting to note, though, this is a really interesting stage of the race. We've been 10 laps or so on these tires now, so they have had some wear on them. A lot of the leaders are coming down pit road to grab their stops. But if you have a look, a lot of JKR Motorsports guys never stayed out.
You've got Brock Silvati there in the 97, who stayed out, I think it was 2 cautions ago. So he's playing the same strategy here, of course, as well. Locked into the playoffs with his win last week at Daytona, so he can afford a strategy like this. The other driver that stays out, his teammate DJ Daniel, who made a pit stop under the last caution because he got the lucky dog. So this yellow flag gaining him a lot of track position here for this upcoming restart.
We're looking at as well, make sure, again, what was I talking about? Play yourself in. Make those strategy calls. He thinks there's going to be another caution here 5-10 laps into the future. He's got a set of tires left in the bank. He hasn't burned those off just yet. Whereas if you have a look at Tom Bourne, some of these sorts of guys, ultimately there's a few lap cars going to pit here. I think Christopher Woodard backwards have just pit. It's those 2 cars that are out at the front that haven't taken a pit stop this time by. They're going to be slow. They're going to be holding up those lines. But those JKR Motorsports guys, they need to work together. They need to try and control this race. And the added side effect, it'll give some of their other teammates an opportunity to pass them in more cleaner circumstances and easier circumstances. So I would be keeping my eyes on this restart. Jeremy Richmond.
And here's the thing, too. Was told before we came on the air here, as far as bonus points are concerned, there's no bonus points for a lap led. There's no bonus points for getting the pole position. There's no bonus points for leading the most laps. The only bonus points that are paid out here during the course of the season, 2 bonus points per win. So if you're Brock Silvati, your goal, you're locked into the playoffs. Your goal now is to go out there and win as many races as you can before the playoffs begin. Rack up those 2 bonus points for every win that you pick up. You bring up an interesting point there about Jeremy Richmond there in the 98 as well, because we saw Silvati go to victory lane last week at Daytona. Last year in Season 1, JKR Motorsports consisted of Silvati in the 97, Richmond in the 98, DJ Daniel in the 96, and Matthew Robinson, the eventual champion, in the 99. Only 2 drivers out of that team went to victory lane during the course of that season. That was Robinson and Daniel. Silvati picked up the win last week. Could Richmond, who was one of the original JKR Motorsports drivers back in Season 1, complete the sweep and pick up his first career win here in BackFire here today?
Potentially. I'm still looking at Tom Bourne, and I'm just looking at it. I mean, again, another one of those drivers I got a lot of bias for. But have a look at the way that he drove through the field on that last restart. Guy has got serious pace. He's been comfortable. He's been quick all day today. If you're sitting in front of Tom Bourne here, I think you're worried. I think you're looking in your rearview mirror as much as you are looking out the windshield, because you've got 2 cars here that you need to get around with older tires. Then you've got to keep your eyes on Tom Bourne.
There's a guy that has now crept his way up into the top 10 that I think we also have to keep an eye on, and that's the 3 of Josh Billiter. He was running around the 15th, 16th position about 20 laps ago. Things have worked out in his favor that he will be restarting this race on the outside of row 4 in the 8th position. So watch out for him. He may have some late race speed, and there's even some guys that have been consistent up here we barely maybe haven't given their due. How about the 33 of Trey Whitehead? I think he has stayed up inside the top 10 the entirety of this race. He's going to be restarting from 6th, so this thing is certainly not over. There's still a lot of drivers that could be some late race players in the closing stages.
Yeah, 23, 24 laps to go. I mean, we're right in that spicy period of the race. Let's get back racing, boys.
Brock Silvati going to lead us back to green. DJ Daniel looked like that car got a little loose on him. Might have spun the tires there. Looked like the right rear wanted to step out, as now the fresh tires of Christopher Woodward. He's going to go to the top position, easily going to clear Brock Silvati off of turn 2.
Yeah, and look at that. Now he doesn't have to look backwards. Now he doesn't have to focus on all these cars that are on older tires. He's just got his eyes screwed forwards, and there's no one there to contest him yet.
Car out of shape back there was Cato. Keeps it straight, though. We remain green flag. 4th place under contest. 3 wide back there for 6th. Bourne, Papa, and Trey Whitehead. That's the second time those 3 have been 3 wide on the last 2 restarts.
Yeah, previous time that Tom Bourne didn't get the best of that one, well, he got the best of this one. He's made a bunch of spots. Look at who he's staring down through his windshield now. It's Alonso Chicano and Jeremy Richmond. These guys have been aggressive. This is going to be a tough pass for Bourne to make.
Kano up on the top side. Richmond on the bottom. Ooh, got really loose there. Did the 98. Nice save through the center of the corner, but that's going to lose him not only a spot to Chicano. Tom Bourne swings around the outside. Chris Papa looking to take advantage as well.
Yeah, and now he's got a lot of heat built up in those rear tires. What's the one thing a NASCAR driver never wants to do? Build up excessive heat in the rear of that car. He's going to be struggling for the next 5 or so laps to really get that car to settle down and turn. And, well, you say cautions breed cautions. Mistakes breed mistakes in these cars.
DJ Daniel to the inside of his teammate.
Papa's loose! Papa's...
Oh, hang on to it. What a save.
Oh, my word.
99 gets the wall off of 4, maybe trying to give room to the 13. Everybody keeps it straight for the time being, though, but a heck of a save by Christopher Papa there through 3 and 4.
And again, these are the guys that are running at the front making these mistakes. They are squeezing every ounce of performance out of these cars, and they've pushed the boundaries now. Now they've got to settle themselves back down, they've got to get comfortable once again, and they've got to start working on their racecraft.
Richmond, I believe, may have gotten the wall there heading into turn 3 with the right rear panel as he follows in the tire tracks of his teammate DJ Daniel, under fire from Tom Bourne for the 4th position. Chris Woodard continues to show the way. I'm really impressed with the fact that the 20-lap-old tires of Brock Salvati is still being able to hang with these top drivers.
Ultimately, the reason that they are is because they're taking the higher lines in the corners. The older tires work well up there. It's really difficult without a huge pace differential to get down to the underside and really drive past the cars. And you can actually see, look at Tom Bourne struggling to get past DJ Daniels. This is a guy who has not had any issues overtaking guys all day strong, and he's been one of the fastest guys out on track, and he just cannot get it done on DJ Daniel.
Almost pushed up into the driver's side door of the 96 there through 3 and 4. Looks like he might be able to clear him off of turn 2. He does, as Daniel gets awfully loose and almost brushed the wall off the second corner. Up ahead, Brock Salvati under fire from Alonso Chicano for 2nd place. Tom Bourne looks to shoot the middle 3 wide into 4.
And this is really, really strong. He's had the guts to send it through there 3 wide. This is going to compromise Chicano's run off of 3 and 4. They're still 3 wide heading into 1 and 2.
Still alongside each other, dead even going into the first corner. Jeremy Richmond looks to see which lane's going to move. He's going to go down to the bottom, almost leaning on each other, the 25 and the 54, as Salvati continues to hold the top.
And guess who wants to see this in his rearview mirror? It's Christopher Woodard. All of a sudden, this guy has nearly opened up a massive gap. This time, it's going to be Salvati that makes a huge mistake. Slides a long way up the track. Chicano's just about going to be clear, and they're still 3 wide, Seth.
Almost looked 4 wide. They were 3 wide behind them as well, with Lawrence, Daniel, and McQuaid. So things are getting really tight from 2nd place on back. Here comes Richmond to the inside, trying to get alongside the 54. Chicano might be clear. He is, but he gets loose off of 2, able to clear and pull off in a literal slide job off the 2nd corner.
Yeah, that's an aggressive move, though, from Chicano. You see him. He slides up. He just barely got clear of Tom Bourne, and Tom Bourne did not want to let him have that one.
Trey Whitehead now on the inside line of Jeremy Richmond, slot him into 4th place. Also back there, you've got Brock Salvati on the old tires trying to keep pace with these guys. He's got his teammate behind him, the 99 of Alexander Kerfan. He, Lawrence, and Salvati all mixing it up for 7th place.
You know what, Seth? We went from cautions breed cautions. All of a sudden, these guys have set their games up about 5-10 clicks. You think that they were taking it easy before? Well, I mean, the racing that they were putting out here now says that they've stopped taking it easy. Every single one of them is pushing. And the best part, it's all clean. There's been no further cautions. We've seen drivers sideways, drivers overloading those rear tires. What a race this has turned out to be.
Well, I can tell you that during the course of this run, there have been about 3 or 4 points I could look at and say those are cautions that should have been and never were, with some tremendous saves here by several drivers. But you're right, so far we've been able to keep these cars all pointed in the the right direction. And now we've got to wonder, how much did all of those drivers from second place on back use up in trying to get up and clear inside of the top 5? Because they've got over a second and 4/10 to reel in the 24 of Christopher Woodard, who's continuing to enjoy the clean air that we've seen has been so prevalent all day long.
Tom Bourne for the first time.
Patrick McQuaid, caution is out.
That's an easy
wreck.
pit stop. The whole field will come down here.
Chris Papa, Patrick McQuaid involved in this one. Another driver further up ahead, Matthew Fleming, 61 of Anthony Zirkle. There's another driver, that's the 3 car, I believe, of Joshua Billiter. Many, many drivers caught up in this incident, which I believe started over in turn 1.
Oh, you know what it is? It's DJ Daniels. Just nudges Patrick McQuaid. McQuaid is trying to get the car turned in and pointed towards where he wants to be in turn number 1, and Daniels gets a huge run at the 3 and 4 on those older tires, tries to send it to the inside, tries to bring it back in a line, tries to give him a nudge, tries to push him along, and ultimately he just gets a little bit too much of a run, and McQuaid he's trying his absolute best. Both of those guys are racing hard. That's a racing incident. These guys are trying to push each other forward. They're trying to use each other to drive themselves forward on the track, and a mistake has been made, nothing more than that.
And the contact takes place on that second crook of that D-shaped front straightaway, and with all the speed these drivers are carrying, the lack of grip to slow the race car down, doesn't matter how much Patrick McQuaid tries to drive that machine, that car is more than likely going to come back up into traffic into turn 1, and unfortunately, just several drivers had absolutely nowhere to go.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. At the end of the race, I mean, look at that run. I mean, so energetic, so exciting. I was actually really, really worried about Tom Bourne here. You had a driver who I think has been the class of the field all night long. He's been one of the drivers who's been able to make up positions very, very easily. You know, a driver that's been phenomenal on the longer runs as well as the short-term speed as well. And all of a sudden, he had to push a little bit too hard to get some of these overtakes done, and he was just boxed in, couldn't go anywhere. Oh my god, JKR? Most of the JKR guys have only taken 2 tires here.
Wow. I don't think we've even seen that strategy here today, so we don't really know how that's going to play out, but I mean, here's the thing. Savati was able to take the line that he wanted. Everybody else had to accommodate for it, and he was able to keep himself up there towards the front for a good portion of that run. So
it's only been a short run, too, Seth. It's not been a massive run, so ultimately, what those guys were looking at, I mean, especially if you have a look at Jeremy Richmond all of a sudden just didn't have the speed that he really needed and wasn't able to make any overtakes. He was struggling, getting all out of shape. He had to do something different because it wasn't working out his way. So I agree with the move from Jeremy Richmond. Kurfan showed a lot of pace last week at Daytona. It was really strong. Those JKR guys really worked together, and I think Kurfan was really the leader. And when you come and have a look at Matthew Robinson, who won the championship last season, he's driving that 99 car now, as Matthew Robinson's been migrated out of the league for such a strong performance last season. Look, for me, was the team leader. I think Jeremy Richmond's been the team leader here today. I think DJ Daniels has been more of a team leader. So I think they've got a little bit of a problem within that JKL Motorsports camp. I think they need to communicate a little bit better. Ultimately, when you're in a team scenario like this, a lot of people within NASCAR say, hey, I don't want to see team orders taking place. But you're there. You are a team. If you work together, you are so much stronger together than if you are fighting each other. And ultimately, on that last restart, they fought each other too much, and now they've had to pull out a trump card and go for an alternative strategy because of it. I think this is the wrong move.
Well, the restart's going to be with less than 10 to go. A couple of drivers looking to take some wave arounds, but they are lap machines, and they will remain lap machines even with taking this wave around. Several drivers that are going to lose laps having to repair damage. Joshua Billiter, Patrick McQuaid, Chris Papa, they all with extended stays on pit road. This is going to put Chris Hupka back on the lead lap, however, as he is the recipient of the free pass under this yellow flag. Jeremy Richmond trying to pull off some strategy here. Actually, it looks like Anthony Zirkle. I thought that Richmond was inheriting the lead, but no, he was actually the first off pit road. Zirkle did not come to pit lane, so he'll be the leader when we go back green flag racing. And both of these drivers, Zirkle and Richmond, coming off rather mediocre runs last week at Daytona. Zirkle was involved in a number of wrecks, at least 2 that I can recall in last week's race at Daytona, before eventually finishing in the 16th position. And Jeremy Richmond, will remember, spun down the infield grass on the front straightaway in that Daytona race. No caution came out to save him. He spent most of that race trying to play catch-up. Eventually did finish in the 10th position, but certainly not the performance it was looking like he was going to have in the early stages of that race. Both of these drivers looking for their first career win here in the BackFire Sim Racing Cup Series.
Yeah, and that's what you got to remember is if you have a look at this lead bunch, and a lot of these drivers up here that are at the lead of this race at this point in time don't have that win here. Yeah, they're phenomenal drivers, but that win will do funny things to your brain at the end of the race. You'll drive that little bit harder. You'll overdrive. Am I expecting a clean run to the end here? The last caution says yes, because it was phenomenal driving there. A lot of mistakes happened. Everyone drove a phenomenal race to keep it as clean as it was for as long as it was. Now it's all going to change, though.
Got to drop all the way back to 9th place to find the first former winner here in the series. As the green flag is out, boy, I think both drivers on the front row may have spun the tires there. And Christopher Woodard says, thank you very much. I'll take the top spot before we even get to the first corner.
Chicano! Keep your eyes on Chicano. Chicano slides through and Bourne's going to follow. All 3 guys on that bottom group got underneath Jeremy Richmond. Richmond's around!
And he's going to save it. My goodness, how did he keep that thing pointed in the right direction, as that thing was almost 45 degrees pointed towards the infield.
Oh, I mean, there's drivers back in the pack that are getting a little bit annoyed with that one, but there's no wreck that's ended up happening. He's
Tom
literally...
Bourne outside for second. And he'll clear for the spot. Now he guns for his teammate.
What a restart, though, by Anthony Zirkle. This is a guy that didn't have an option. He's taken a weird strategy. He's taken a different line to get his way up here, and it's playing out for him. Now it's going to be Woodard and Bourne that are working together, the teammates. Who comes out on top?
For Woodard, last week finished in the 4th position at Daytona, poised to take the points lead into next week's race. And Tom Bourne trying to quell the DNF he had last week at Daytona with a trip to victory lane. Alonso Chicano right behind him as well. These have, for the most part, been the top 3 on the long run for most of the day, and the caution is going again.
Huge wreck! Huge wreck!
Brock Silvati in the 97 out of turn 2 onto the back straightaway. Fires the car back up. Well, you can see there's definite suspension problems with that machine as it skews far to the left.
A bunch of other JKR Motorsport cars. Kurfan's involved. DJ Daniels is involved. That's the teammates getting together.
They were all running nose to tail here, going into the corner. You see the Silvati's car. Silvati was in trouble, it looks like. Before he even got to the center of the corner, that back end was wanting to come around on him.
It looked unbalanced. It looked like he was chasing the car the whole way in there. And ultimately, when you get that deep into the corner and the rear still hasn't settled down, this is always going to be the result. Oh, that's frustrating for our Week 1 winner at Daytona. He's taken his fast repair, I believe, as well. So I think this is it for him.
And you would be correct. He had already used his fast repair. There you see the contact for Kurfan, the 99. And then Daniel not only making contact with Silvati's back end, but also pancaking the right side there into the outside wall out of turn number 2. So 3, as you mentioned, of the JKR Motorsports cars involved in this one. Looks like Daniel is going to stay out. Kurfan is going to stay out as well. They don't really have much of a choice because they also have used their fast repairs up to this point. Actually, if we look inside of the top 10 right now, there's only 2 drivers that are yet to use their fast repair. They're currently running in 3rd place, Alonso Chicano, and 6th place, Anthony Zirkle. Everybody else inside of the top 10, top 11 for that matter, have all used their fast repair at this point in time.
Something else to consider as well, these drivers, their last pit stop was on lap 120. These tires have now got 3 or 4 laps on them. They're going to be 0.3, 0.4 of a second off. However, it's so difficult to overtake unless your name's Tom Bourne or Alonso Chicano. Those guys have really been able to make their way through the field tonight, unlike most of the other drivers. Do you come down pit road? Do you take another set of tires here? If there's a green-white checkers, I think you are in the prime seat to push your way through. But you're betting on that. Any of the drivers that are towards the back end of the lead lap, calm down, take that risk. Why? You're not going to lose any spots. I'm looking at Clifford Corvo, Chris Hubkins obviously massively damaged. Jeremy Richmond has got a huge opportunity to come down here and take those extra left side tires, maybe the right sides as well, reset, go again. Christopher Lawrence, he's another driver I can see coming on this alternative strategy. Why? You got nothing to lose. You're going to lose 1-2 spots, you'll make them up in the first turn.
Clifford Corbeau got the lucky dog under this caution, so 15 drivers will be on the lead lap when we go back green. Currently, looks like we have 22 drivers that are still out there on the racetrack. Patrick McQuaid, Wesley Jeanette, they're on pit road, as well as David Modespa and Cam Caldwell getting damage repaired on those machines. We did have another driver that I didn't document that went behind the wall about 16 laps ago, and that was Ron Gartner. Looks like he'll finish 25th in today's race at Atlanta Motor Speedway. But the thing I'm wondering here is we're going to be coming around to 2 laps to go. Now, if the lights go out, we got a 1-lap shootout, but I'm almost wondering, are we finishing this in regulation with that 1-lap dash? Are we extending it to the green-white checkered? It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the lights on the pace car this time by.
It'll get extended for green-white checkers. You always get 2 laps after the pace car pulls off and you go back to green flag racing. So keep your eyes peeled for that. If they don't go out this time by, it will still be a 2-lap shootout. But I expect them to... actually, I think we're going to get extended here.
So we will go into overtime. Remember that last week we were scheduled to run 100 laps at Daytona International Speedway, and we ended up running 105 laps because we had to go into overtime for that race. So we're 2 for 2 and going into overtime here in Season 2 of the BackFire Sim Racing Cup Series. And we'll see if this is going to be our one and only overtime attempt at a green-white checkered.
I'm gonna throw the curse out there. It's time to talk about the FRN, the Flatout Racing Network curse. Tom Bourne has taken a risk by putting the team logo, the Flatout Racing Network logo on his car, but I think you know the curse a lot better than I do.
I do know the curse. I also know that there's also a little bit of a backstory that there's a pizza party on the line as well. Tom Bourne's been told he has to put the FRN car in victory lane on a broadcast to be eligible for the said pizza party. He's already done it, but it wasn't on a broadcast. So in order to be eligible for that pizza party, he's got to put that car in victory lane on a broadcast. So there's a lot on the line there, along with that curse for Tom Bourne here on this restart. And it's a teammate he's going to have to battle out here out of Rebel Racing and Christopher Woodard for this victory. Neither one of these drivers have a win here in the BackFire Sim Racing League up to this point.
Yeah, and have a look at Trey Whitehead. He's really getting aggressive. The guy I'm worried about if I'm these two is probably Alonso Chicano. He's been very quick, very aggressive on restarts, and he has been fighting Tom Bourne all night long, but it's going to be the top side that gets that jump.
Ooh, Chicano tried to get to the right rear of Tom Bourne, couldn't quite do it. Bourne through the block. Chicano trying to drive it deep there into turn 1 as the 24 tries to put some daylight between himself and this raging battle for second. All of a sudden, though, Tom Bourne with a big run out of 2. He's to the back bumper to the inside of his teammate for the top spot.
Yeah, I think he'll take it here. Bourne's been really good on this low line. Woodard's been good in the about a half a lane up, sort of not quite getting to that white line, but really strong on exit here. The other thing to consider is that this hampers both of them. If Chicano can get his car settled down, he gets comfortable with it, he's in the prime spot at the moment.
They've taken the white flag. Next flag ends the race. Bourne on the bottom, Woodard on the top. Both dead even through the center of the corner. 24 with the advantage off the turn 2. We're in the back. Lawrence is right. We're still racing back to the checkers, I do believe. Chicano drives it deep on Bourne for second. Bourne looking to the inside of his teammate Woodard for the top spot. Woodard, I think, is going to have it off of 4.
Bourne's on the fence! Bourne's on the fence!
And Chicano's going to hit hard on the front straightaway as Christopher Woodard is going to pick up the victory here tonight at Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Oh my word, have you seen the post-checkers wreck though?
Big impact for Chicano. Tom Bourne had to slide across the start-finish line. I think that he collected up, I believe the 14 of Christian Roos, I'm sorry. Big hits here in the closing stages, and there you see the smoke from all the incidents coming back to the checkered flag. Christopher Woodard going to add a little bit more smoke to it, though, as he'll get ready to do his burnouts with the victory here tonight in the BackFire 250 presented by Threat Level Midnight Motorsports. But you knew it was going to happen. You knew that they were going to be aggressive here on this restart coming to the checkered flag. We've seen the restarts be absolutely chaotic all night long, and there was a checkered flag on the line with this one.
I mean, have a look at that race. That was just a phenomenal race all night long. I mean, there was close battles, car strategy, tire strategy, fuel strategy. Everything was very, very important. All the drivers had an option to win. There was so many drivers here at some different stage during the race. You thought that Tom Bourne had this one locked up in the early stages. He was so quick. He was so consistent. Then the cautions played themselves out. Tom Bourne did something wrong at some stage, shuffled himself back in the pack, made the moves, brought himself back to the fore again. But ultimately, I think Woodard is the deserving winner here tonight, and the reason for it is he probably ran the cleanest and most effective race of anybody. He was quick, he was consistent, but most importantly, he kept himself out of chaos, and when everything else fell away, that's why he won tonight.
No doubt about it. We saw there the incident with Christopher Lawrence getting loose off of turn 2. A couple of drivers getting collected up in that one. This was the incident coming to the checkered flag with Bourne up into the wall. He clips the 25 of Alonso Chicano, and then look out oncoming traffic. Everyone avoids him, but I think Tom Bourne took a couple of shots there as he spun his car across the start-finish line in the 4th position.
Sorry, so just give me a sec. Something's just happening in the background here.
A couple of cars actually went up and over. Tom Bourne was one of them. Jeremy Richmond, I believe, in the 98 was the other. Here it was as Bourne hits the wall. Daniel. There's Zach Woods. I mean, look into the mayhem, see if a driver that you're following is in it. All these drivers had already crossed the start-finish line, but definitely not going to be leaving Atlanta with their cars in one piece, as 6, 7, maybe 8 drivers all collected up in that mayhem just after the start-finish line, and a bunch of wrecked smoking machines leaving the exit of turn 1.
Ultimately, any of the drivers that spin it out after the start-finish line get involved in that post-race wreck. I mean, at the end of the day, at that point for them, it's just a lot of fun. A lot of the drivers do have... It's important to consider when these drivers are actually racing. You can look at some of the basic entry-level racing gears, say the Logitech wheels, the Thrustmaster wheels, those sorts of style of thing. Very low force, not a huge deal of feedback, but you can still break your thumb if you do something wrong with those wheels. But some of these drivers are actually on a higher level wheel. There's a lot of force that goes through those things. So when they get in an accident like the one that happened off the start-finish line, they have to take their hands off the wheel because it is possible to still do some damage to your hands. So I hope all of our drivers get through that okay.
Here's a look at your top 10 with Woodard picking up the victory. Trey Whitehead bringing it home second. Christian Ruse. Saw him about 3 cautions ago come down, top off the fuel tank, keep making sure that he was going to make it on fuel. Stayed out of trouble pretty much the entirety of the day. He'll finish on the podium in 3rd. Tom Bourne slid across the line in 4th. DJ Daniel with a nice comeback run after his issues around the midway portion of this race to finish 5th. Pole sitter Jeremy Richmond in 6th. Zachary Woods, good run for him in 7th. Alexander Kerfan finishes in 8th. Matthew Fleming will bring it home 9th. And Alonso Chicano, even though the car spun across the start-finish line, still will get a top 10 here today. Looking at the rest of the finishing results here today, some drivers getting some lucky dogs. That's a bit of a double right there, with Clifford Corvell and Chris Hubka finishing on the lead lap in 11th and 12th. Gartner, Zirkle, and Lawrence were the last drivers to finish on the lead lap. And obviously, as you look a little bit further down here in the running order, some of the drivers that kind of jump out that had great runs last week did not have good runs this week. Obviously, Brock Savati with the victory, and the runner-up finisher last week, Aaron Brown. Both those drivers up there in the point standings, finishing outside the top 20 here today.
It's exactly what I was talking about. And I mean, I'm even looking at drivers like the 07 of Michael Shaw, you know, a guy that definitely had pace at different points. He played different strategy games to try and play himself back into things. And ultimately, he had a car that was capable of a top 10 finish at some points during the race tonight. That's a guy that got himself in just one too many accidents. Well, actually, I would say for sure, unfortunately, it was probably too many incidents. So a lot of these drivers next week, what I'm looking for them, go back to the drawing board. Yeah, we had pace. Yeah, we were out here. Specifically, Richmond is one of those guys. But they made mistakes. they found themselves caught up in other people's incidents. Ultimately, we have a fast repair for that reason. Do you drive different before and after? Do you drive different in the early stages of the race? Do you drive different in the later stages of the race if you still got the fast repair up your sleeve? Yes, you do, because if you're a racing driver and you're not leveraging all of these bits and pieces that are critical to a race, then you're going to fall by the wayside. And like I said, Christopher Woodard, what a race from him tonight. Ultimately, would I say that that guy is the fastest driver out there? I wouldn't. Would I say that he was the best race driver tonight? You bet your life I would, because he just kept himself clean. Even when it was chaotic all around him, he made sure he was in a really, really good spot, and ultimately he got a great opportunity to race his teammate for the win and come out on top as well.
And what a start to the season for him as well. 4th place last week at Daytona. The win here tonight at Atlanta, solidifying his spot into the playoffs representing Rebel Racing. And we'll be talking with him in Victory Lane in just a moment. But let's see if we can talk with our 3rd place finisher here tonight for 1-3 speed. Christian Ruse going to pick up a podium finish here in only the 2nd race of the season. Hey Christian, it's Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
I do. What's going on, guys?
Well, man, I'll tell you what, we got treated up here in the booth to an unbelievable race. I can only imagine, though, how nerve-wracking it was for a driver out there on the racetrack with the conditions we saw you drivers having to face. Now, we saw that you kind of had the strategy, at least for a good portion of this race, just kind of ride at the back, stay out of trouble, but you made the charge there at the end. What was it like on that final green-white checkered with cars spinning and wrecking all around you?
That final green-white checkered was nuts is about the only way to put it. The beginning strategy was completely inadvertent. I got in the wall early on and put myself behind the 8-ball a lot. I was able to just pick things off as the race went on and ended up near the front at the end there. And yeah, just absolutely nuts. Happy to come away with what I did, but wow.
I mean, it was one of those chaotic races towards the tail end of the race, but the racing for especially extended periods, we got that, 10-lap period in the middle there, probably, I think it was, 100, 110, or 110 to 120, somewhere around there. The racing was just so aggressive, but so good. Everyone was trying to give each other that little bit of extra room. Multiple drivers had the cars sideways and saved it. How difficult is it to race in the midfield here? Because everyone's just so close in terms of their speed.
It was extremely difficult. Me and a couple buddies were talking. The talent between last season and this season is just gone up exponentially. And racing around all these guys, some of them are able to make the moves that they do, and some of them can drive a little bit over their heads sometimes. So it's really a big chess game out there, figuring out who's going to make what move when. And really anticipating that, and then some of it comes down to just luck and being able to get away with some of the stuff that maybe some other people don't.
I was looking at the schedule comparison from last season to this season, and obviously last week at Daytona, the season opener for last season, but only 4 races in last year's schedule appear here on this year's schedule for the regular season. Here today at Atlanta, it was the first time it appeared on the BackFire schedule. Next week's throwback race at Nashville, first time it makes its debut on the schedule. I mean, with a lot of changes going on here and different tracks on the schedule than what you raced last season, how does that change your strategy when you look at the schedule as far as trying to make your way into the playoffs? Do you look at some of these places and say, this is a place I can win my way in, or are you one of those guys that is more wanting to be consistent and point your way in?
For me, I'm definitely one of the consistent guys. I don't think personally I have the skill to go out there and win every week. I can run top 5, top 10, but for me, it's all about consistency and trying to nail down a decent finish at every track. Just looking at the schedule, there's some places, Charlotte, I'm really good at. New Hampshire, on the other hand, I'm absolute trash. Pocono's another one. Michigan, I'm good at both of those places, so I know I can get out there and run consistently high. I don't know about winning, but as long as I can run good and end up near the front at the beginning, I think I'll have a good shot at the end of the season for the playoffs.
We talk about consistency. Definitely you've started out this year very consistent. 7th at Daytona, 3rd place here tonight at Atlanta. Congratulations on the great performance here tonight, surviving all the chaos there on that final green-white checkered. Christian, we're now going to give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
First of all, thank you to you guys for broadcasting this for us. It's awesome to watch the replays every week. Huge thanks to the Smoke Pit and Extreme Automotive Detailing, my two sponsors. Thanks to Lawrence and Hubka for putting this league on. To the fans for watching this, and most importantly to the drivers for being able to come out here and put this on every week. Just 2 races into the season, and it's exponentially better than it was last season. Just like I said, with the talent, it's amazing to go out there and race with these guys. And just go all out. It's awesome. So thanks to everyone tuning in. Yeah, that's all I got.
Well, Atlanta Motor Speedway sees Christian Ruse P3 here tonight in the BackFire 250. Congratulations, Christian. Looking forward to seeing you continue this consistency next week at Nashville.
Thank you, gentlemen. Looking forward to it.
No doubt Christian Ruse will be up inside of the top 5 in the point standings with back-to-back top 10 runs here in the first 2 races of the season. A guy that also stayed up inside the top 5 for most of the day is now standing by. That's our runner-up finisher, Trey Whitehead. Hey Trey, it's Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Man, I'll tell you what, we saw a lot of drivers out there that were fast and a lot of drivers that were consistently fast. You were obviously one of the latter, kept it up there towards the front for most of this race. Actually made some challenges up there inside of the top 3 around the second half of this race and come away with a P2 finish. I mean, what was this 130-lap race like from inside the cockpit of that Chevrolet?
Man, it was mostly ups, but obviously there was its downs. A couple of restarts, we had a guy stay out. Good for him to not, get into anybody, but I kind of got trapped behind him, freight train on the outside, dropped back to like 13th or 14th. But a couple of restarts later, able to drive our way back up to the top 10 and eventually into the top 5. And at the end there, I mean, I got passed by Christian coming to the white flag, and I was just ready to accept P5, and I saw what happened in front of me. And at that point, you're just not lifting. If you wreck, you wreck. But I got through it and was able to pass Christian at the line for second. So, I mean, what a finish. But yeah, obviously a really consistent race for the number 33 Fort Logan Flooring Camaro.
I mean, difficult track, difficult to overtake, especially on those long runs. Once the tires even out, it goes from being a multi-groove racing kind of back to one sort of groove, unless you can really build that run over multiple laps. It's such a difficult track, Atlanta, but ultimately, I actually think it created what's going to be probably one of the highlights of the season when we draw back to the end of it. What's your perspective on that? I mean, obviously it's aggressive. There was a lot of cautions tonight, but that was caused by ultimately drivers racing each other incredibly hard.
Right, yeah, it was a lot of really close racing. Like you said, when the tires get worn is when the second and third lines can kind of come in, but I mean, there was one restart, I believe it was a little bit past the halfway point. We were on the same tires, but everybody was trying to run the bottom. I just ran the second line, and I think I was back in 10th. Was able to get up to like 6th or 5th, just, side drafting everybody through the corner, and was able to get the run off on the top side, even on fresh tires. So, I mean, maybe the top would have worked on fresh tires, but I never really ventured up there until my tires were a little worn out, and I couldn't really turn it on the bottom. But yeah, I mean, it made for some really good racing. Not really single file for most of the race. There was some guys able to run the top consistently and guys who stuck to the bottom the whole race. So, but yeah, I mean, it was really good racing. It was hard to pass. I mean, you get runs and stuff like that. You can kind of dive bomb it into the corner and stuff and slide up in front of people. But yeah, I mean, it was just a really good race all around.
Yeah, I mean, when I was observing these cars in practice, and then, of course, as well, when you guys were taking these restarts, I saw a lot of drivers having difficulty with the cars getting loose, and it seemed to be in just about every portion of the corner. Some drivers would get loose on entry. We saw drivers in the race get loose in the center of the corner, and then a lot of drivers having difficulty with the corner of turn 2 exit with the car wanting to step out on them. With the car apparently not really wanting to plant itself on several occasions, when you're a driver going into turn 1 or into turn 3, do you have a feeling of determination? Do you have a feeling of fear? I mean, is it 50-50? I mean, what do you think? Are you just praying the thing sticks?
So, I mean, on the restart, you're full throttle. I don't care who you are. I mean, if you're a little nervous, maybe you'll let off a little bit, but I certainly had an instance where I was full throttle, didn't even shift into 4th. I was trying to get all the RPMs I could out of it, and I did get loose out of turn 2, but I was able to save it. But yeah, I mean, even during the middle of the race, if you're just going to overdrive the corner and smash on the gas, corner exit is definitely going to get you, and I feel like that's where it was going wrong. Because, I mean, I felt like we had entry good. I didn't really see anybody get loose on entry, but yeah, it was definitely corner exit on turn number 2. No matter if it was a restart or if it was 30 laps into a run, you were going to get loose if you overdrive the corner. So,
Well, Trey, we know that obviously you didn't quite get the finish you were looking for, 14th last week at Daytona, but no doubt you're going to, by leaps and bounds, jump up through the point stands with the second place finish here tonight at Atlanta, so congratulations on that. We're now going to hand the microphone over to you, let you do some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, I appreciate Fort Logan Flooring and my team owner, Ryan Sizemore, for getting me into this league. He's been a good partner with me through Fort Logan Flooring and other leagues on iRacing, and we've gotten him a couple of wins over there, so hopefully we can pull it over to this side. But, Sizemore Motorsports has been fast, all season long. Unfortunately, last week, the 14th place, like you said, but, we bounced back pretty good this week, and we plan to stay up here, and we will be more consistent as the season goes on. But yeah, I'd like to thank everybody over at Sizemore Motorsports, and they made the 33 fast today. Qualified third, ran up front like you said most of the race, and was able to get P2. Not win, but we'll take second.
Well, strong performance here today gets Trey Whitehead his first career top 5, second place here tonight at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Once again, congratulations there, Trey, and look forward to seeing you continue this good momentum into Nashville next week.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Can't wait to go back and reflect on that finish. That was wild. So I hope you guys had a good time watching that.
Absolutely did. And a driver that obviously enjoyed that finish as well, as all the mayhem basically took place behind him, is down in victory lane. Let's see if we can talk with tonight's winner, Christopher Woodard. Hey, Chris, it's Scott and Seth up here in the upper end booth. You got us?
Yep, I got you.
All right, man. Well, first off, congratulations on a tremendous victory. We saw as soon as you got that clean air, nobody was able to get in front of you. You were able to keep them all pinned down that inside line, but had to hold off a couple of challenges there in the closing stages. So how nerve-wracking was that?
It was pretty nerve-wracking. I was just trying to keep the confidence up and just keep driving hard and hope to pull it out.
I mean, multiple times there on that final restart, your teammate and Tom Bourne got down underneath you, but ultimately that higher line, it just had the momentum. It was such a good race, multiple grooves working at different stages throughout the race. How did you react as a driver right throughout the race? Because Tom had the wood over you in the early portions of the run there.
Yeah, he was definitely a lot faster than me in the shorter and long run, but when it comes to the short run and working the outside line, I'm really good at the outside line. I ran it most of the race, and it just happened to work out in my favor.
Now, we obviously saw that this race was starting at least around the halfway point to look like it was going to take on a long green flag run, maybe to the checkered flag outlook. Then we started getting the cautions back to back to back. Drivers started coming down pit lane. Some drivers would go with fuel only. Some would take 4. We saw a couple of drivers go with the 2-tire strategy. How difficult was that then for restarts, having drivers play that strategy, older tires in front of you? Because we saw a number of stack-ups. For the most part, everybody was able to keep the wheels pointed the correct direction, but definitely a couple of hairy moments there with everybody all bunched up.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of hairy moments there. Luckily, I'm sitting behind the leaders, so as soon as they break loose, and I can move quickly to a direction that I need to. And they kept it straight, so it allowed me to get as much clean air and away from them as possible.
Now, I asked this of Brock Salvati last week after Daytona. I'm going to ask you this now because with this victory, it locks you into the playoffs. So how does this now change your outlook for the remaining 7 races of the regular season?
It doesn't change anything. I'm still going to drive hard and still try to win and get as much points as possible.
And ultimately, sorry, Chris, just one more question for you. I mean, there was an incident there at one stage between you and one of the JKL Motorsport cars. I think it was Aaron Brown. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, that's just hard racing. That's just a mistake on your part. And I got the feeling from the way that you reacted to it and some of the text message exchanges I've seen as well, that it was just all out. There was nothing in that, was there? It's, when you're pushing these cars to the absolute limit, sometimes you have to go beyond that limit. You just exceeded that on that restart.
Yeah, when he got close to me and we was pretty much door to door, it kind of got my car a little bit loose, and it was either the wall or him, and I had to choose.
No doubt about it, Christopher. Great performance for you here tonight, though, picking up the victory. I believe you're also going to be taking the points lead into Nashville next week, so looks like a lot of things going right for this 24 machine here in the early portions of this season. We're now going to give the opportunity for some Victory Lane thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, I want to thank my teammates and everyone that's pushing me, and I want to thank all the sponsors: Butt Kicker, JRS Mobile Detailing, JKR Motorsports, Adu Ventures, Blackgate Security, and Hupka Real Estate Group. And I would thank Lawrence and them for allowing me to run for their team.
Christopher Woodard, first career win in the BackFire Sim Racing Cup Series here tonight in the BackFire 250. Congratulations, Chris. Best of luck next week in Throwback Week at Nashville.
I appreciate it.
And so as the dust settles and the smoke clears here at Atlanta Motor Speedway, Christopher Woodard continues to celebrate his victory here tonight. But man, what a race here, Scott. I mean, my goodness, we saw drivers get involved in some early incidents, some of them having to kind of change up their strategy to preserve their cars for the second half of this race. But once we got to that, my goodness, those cautions bunching everybody up, lots of different pit strategy coming into play, and my heart still is pumping from that 10-lap stint we had there with several occasions of 3 wide, on one occasion almost 4 wide, couple of saves in the mix up there, cautions that never happened. I mean, these guys put on a heck of a show here tonight.
Oh, didn't they? I mean, it was close, hard racing. There's a lot of drivers, I think, right now that the red mist is up, and I think they're a little, shall we say, misunderstanding of what's happened throughout the race. I think there's a lot of reviewing that the drivers are going to go home. They're going to do a lot of work coming up for next week. Ultimately, at the end of the day, what you've got to sit down and say as a race car driver is that these things will happen during races. It's not like a team sport. In a team sport, you go out there, you get aggressive, and there's multiple other people around you to help settle you down. In sports like motor racing, yeah, you're on a team, but in most cases, you're out there mentally on your own, psychologically. You've got to make sure that you're focused on the outcome. You're focused on the right things. What could I have done to improve myself? At the end of the day, sometimes you are going to sit down and say, hey, I did everything I possibly could have, and I was a little unlucky. And I actually really feel for Alonso Chicano right now. I think he had P2 locked up with Tom Bourne spinning out of 3 and 4 on the last lap. Those two drivers made contact. That's unfortunate. That's just racing. Bourne's pushing as hard as he can to go for a win because that guy really wants to win the race. He showed speed. I think he was the fastest driver on the track tonight. And he showed his ability to overtake. He couldn't do it in that final restart. And ultimately, he made a mistake. He overdrove the car. That's a mistake. Unfortunately, Chicano gets wound up in that. You know, that's also rating. Everyone sort of gets crossed up in it coming across the start-finish line. But ultimately, these are drivers pushing for a win. When they do so, a lot of that's going to happen. And I think Christopher Woodard actually covered that off quite well.
Yeah, he definitely did. And right now, the points are in, but they're unofficial. Alonso Chicano right now sits 4th in the point stands behind new points leader Chris Woodard. Christian Ruse up to 2nd, DJ Daniel in 3rd, and then you've actually got a 4-way tie for the 5th position between Kyle Gartner, Zach Woods, Jeremy Richmond, and Trey Whitehead heading into Nashville. Let's touch on Nashville here real quickly because obviously, you know, it's been chosen as one of my favorite nights on schedules, throwback night. We're going to see these drivers get to have those throwback liveries to drivers of the past, maybe some of the present. We'll have to wait and see. But considering the fact of what we saw here today as well, you have to wonder, you know, is there going to be some follow-up of contact that was exchanged here at Atlanta 1 week later at Nashville, or is with this week in between, are those bridges going to be rebuilt?
Oh, I can tell you one relationship that is definitely, there's a bridge that's definitely been burned, and that's Tom Bourne and Alonso Chicano. Those guys are not on good standing points after this race here. Ultimately, JKR Motorsports are probably going to try and reach out to Christopher Woodward and repair that bridge at the end of things because they were very, very annoyed at what ended up happening to Aaron Brown at things. They've got to realize, hey, that was a mistake. You know, they're racing each other hard. He pushed things a little bit too deep. That's racing. That's NASCAR. If you're expecting to show up to every single race, get raced cleanly, get raced in, you know, different formats on difficult tracks like we've seen tonight, that is going to happen at some stage in the season. And ultimately, we've all got a different understanding of what we think clean, close racing looks like. Some guys, Alonso Chicano in particular, actually was very, very aggressive on his overtakes. He slid up in front of Tom Bourne, and Tom Bourne allowed that. You know, so there's give and take within NASCAR. There's give and take in everything you do in life. NASCAR, the results are a lot more drastic because it's, you know, if you give too much or you take too much, then you're going to fall a long, long way back. So, look, I mean, it's going to be a long week between races, definitely for sure. But I think when we get to Nashville next week, there is going to be a lot of drama in the air.
And I think that Christian Ruse pegged it perfectly with the fact that he said that from last season to this season, the competition has stepped up a ton. And we've been treated in the past 2 weeks to drivers picking up their very first checkered flags here in the BackFire Sim Racing Cup Series. Will we see 3 for 3 when we get to Nashville next week? We're going to have to wait and see. But man, what a race again, once again, here tonight at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Christopher Woodard is your winner. Scott, it's been a great one here tonight. Appreciate you joining the booth.
Oh, mate, look, I mean, can I sponsor this league? I want my name up there in lights when we cover races such like this one. That was phenomenal. I enjoyed every single lap of that. We had long green flag runs. We had phenomenal racing. We had back-to-back cautions. This race had everything. Oh, my word, so much fun.
And thanks to Midnight Motorsports, Threat Level Midnight Motorsports, that is, for sponsoring tonight's BackFire 250 at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Once again, thanks to all of you that tuned in tonight. Hope that you guys enjoyed our coverage. Tune in next week as we're going to be bringing you the Nashville race, third race of the season. Green flag next Friday night, scheduled to fly at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For Scott Rankin, I'm Seth Cole. We'll see you guys next week here as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's